for the slides.
Okay, give me a second. Let me pull it up.
That's right. Super sorry.
Hey, Justin, you sent me the slide, but you did not give me permission to see it, so I cannot pull it up.
Sue, just think of the big report you're gonna have next week. I know.
There's a lot of access.
I just sent a request for access to your email, so you should be able to do it from there.
Okay.
We'll have to allow an extra half hour just for committee reports.
I agree. Yeah, that's true, for sure. Is this charged up? I just turned this on, right?
Yes.
What help? Oh, he's up there, the voice. Where is he?
Yeah, I'm behind the curtain. I'm the guy behind the curtain.
Yes.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Do you log on your email here?
We have way too much fun here. We shouldn't be. We're supposed to be serious, right, Wade? Wade's always serious.
We can't do it to Mason.
Yeah, it's John's.
Okay.
Yeah, how's your son's? Is he better? Or was his back? Okay.
Okay, Randy, I'm sending it right now.
That's as a picture.
Okay, yeah, because it looks like you just forwarded me the one from Casey. So I'm not. If she owns it, she may need to give me access to it. I don't know. Okay, there we go. Let me see.
And a separate copy that isn't shared, if that makes it easier.
Okay.
Oh, Sue and I have all the time in the world. We're retired.
Yeah, we both just got back from vacation.
That's
We're all
right.
refreshed and ready
That's
to go.
right.
Thank you, Randy. All right, ladies.
Okay. So my name is Lori Lombard. I'm the chairperson for the speech language pathology program at IUP. And I am here to propose a renewal of our partnership for the 24-25 academic year. So I've started the slides, next slide please, with just an overview in case any of the new board members aren't familiar with what exactly a speech language pathologist does. We are a healthcare profession that provides services across the lifespan. So in the top left, you can see we start right at birth with feeding and swallowing services for premature infants in neonatal intensive care units. And then we travel up the lifespan. We do early intervention. We work in school settings. We work in outpatient clinics with communication and hearing and voice disorders. And then we move into inpatient settings, primarily for swallowing, some cognition and communication that extends all the way to end-of-life care. So we are a lifespan profession. However, close to 40% of speech language pathologists do work in a school-based setting. And the school district has 4 full-time speech language pathologists with very full caseloads. And next slide, please. And so the typical services for a speech language pathologist in the school is to primarily address developmental delays and disorders in speech, which includes articulation, speech sound disorders, or even fluency like stuttering, language. So they work on skills to help students produce and understand language that's meaningful and structured. We work on oral and written literacy skills and social communication. So that's both verbal and nonverbal interactions with people. We work with cognition. So we work on memory. We work on what are called executive functions, which include things like organization, time management, problem solving, attention, planning and prioritizing. So from this skill set, it's pretty clear that these are skills essential to students being successful both in and out of the classroom. Next slide. So in 2019, the school district administrators and faculty from IUP started discussions on how the district could benefit from the 7 faculty and 48 graduate students in speech language pathology that are living in the backyard. And so we started a pilot program in the spring of 20, where we brought our faculty and students into the district, into the elementary school, providing some screenings and support services in speech and literacy. And so that's developed and grown over the past 3.5 years. And so here's basically the 3 main services that we're providing right now. And again, these have evolved since our pilot program in 20. And so right now we provide the first service. Can you go one more slide, please? Thanks. The first service is speech and language RTI, or support services, in the MTSS program. So when we were having that discussion, it just went with the administration. It coincidentally happened around the same time that they were reshaping their MTSS first tier support systems. And so it was decided that that's where we could have the most impact with our manpower and the literacy services that were needed for their first tier supports. And so this developed now. Our caseload is around 150 elementary students. We do screenings, plus we see them twice a week for support interventions. The students are identified and referred by school psychologists based on Acadian's data, and also from the reading specialists and teachers as well who make referrals. So the format of it is that we send over 5 students with one of our faculty supervisors. And so they all come together and provide those services, again, twice a week to the students who are in screening situations as well. So we are, and I think the hours, thank you for your room there. So we're here 2 full days and 2 half days between the supervisors, so our faculty supervisors. 2 of them are with me here today, Dr. Coburn and Dr. Leeper, who bring the students over on those days. And then we also manage the caseload. So the building principals provide the schedules for the teachers, and then Dr. Coburn matches that up with our student availability and plugs them into situations where we're not pulling from key classroom content, we're taking from WIN, or areas where we can provide the most impact with the least amount of disruption. Next slide, please.
Lori, can I just ask one
Yeah.
question? When you said you have 3 sets of 5, so there are 15 total interns that come with 2 faculty.
Right,
Thanks.
right. Or 3, well, we also, so.
Oh, that's right. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So the reason confusion is, so 4 of the students are providing services, but we bring a 5th so that they do what we call a runner. So we're seeing them for 10-minute burst sessions, and to not have any downtime, we bring a student who there are 4 students at a time. This other student goes to the classroom, gets the next set, and takes the other set back. And so she's constantly running so that we can have back-to-back services without downtime. So that's
But it's
that's why the
15
fifth.
interns.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. And then, and that's our caseload. So, and then for the screenings, for example, we went to East Pike in the fall with 12 students and 3 supervisors all in one day, nonstop screenings until we accomplished in one day what would otherwise take 12 days with 12 providers and 3 faculty there. So it's an efficient delivery of service with faculty expertise and materials. So we provide all the materials for these students. We give each student an iPad that has the stimulus items and the materials. They all have a dry erase board, mirrors, and we provide all the screening forms so that they're ready to go without having to burden the district with the supplies aspect of it as well. And then, next slide, please. The second service we provide are hearing screenings. So we coordinate with the school nurses. So PDE requires that kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders, 7th graders are required to have hearing screenings. And so that's high volume work where we have the manpower and expertise to do that. So Erin Clark, who's pictured there, comes with students along with Dr. Coburn, and we come in, we bring our own equipment. So we have all the equipment to do otoscopy, tympanometry, and pure tone screenings. We provide and pay for the calibration and maintenance of that equipment, and we bring all the expendables. So we have probe tips and cleaning materials to make sure that they're clean between each student, and we provide all of that. And so we come in 10 Fridays during the school year. This year, we usually have seen in the high 700s of students. This year, we're on target to see 800 students in screenings in those 10 days. So again, we free up the nurse who's there with us, but it allows her to do phone calls and consults while we're doing all the of high efficiency labor with 4 or 5 students at a time to be able to do that. And next slide. And then the third and final part of the contract, one more slide, please, is the graduate assistants that are part of the contract. So this is something that built upon a program or a partnership that Dr. Rigg created several years ago with the literacy interns or graduate assistants. So we took it and expanded it into our scope of practice with 8 graduate assistantships. And so these students come over and work 10 hours a week, typically on Mondays and Wednesdays from 8:30 to 1:30. And so this has evolved over the last couple of years as well. And so we use 6 of them in the 4th and 5th grade buildings supervised by Ms. Eisman, and they help support in the classrooms those teachers, so providing individual instruction or support to students in the classroom or out in the hallway as needed. This year we took 2 of those assistantships and paired them up with Tara Pangonis, the special educator in the high school, to provide some executive functions, which is also within our scope of practice. So they're providing those students identified by the special educators who need help with time management, organization, problem-solving skills, planning, prioritizing, that kind of work. And so our students have been doing that. And we are certainly open to using those graduate assistants in any way that benefits the school district by their training. So that can morph into any way that the school district needs them. So those 3 services, the RTI in the elementary buildings, the hearing screenings that support the nurses, and the graduate assistantships, next slide, are part of our proposed contract, which includes all 3 of those. And so, again, it's a way to capitalize on our neighbors, our IUP and ISD, the manpower and the expertise that we have right here to be able to provide these extra support services in high volume and high efficiency. So RTI in the elementary, hearing screenings, and the graduate assistants as you see fit to use them. And that's the contract proposal right there.
Yeah, and I can just add in from my perspective, what I've seen as an administrator of the school district over the last, 3 years?
3.5, yeah.
3.5 years is the RTI work has been incredibly helpful. We have data that shows that kids have made improvements. The screenings also are invaluable. And I think too, that the work with executive function, I'm super excited about because, the Office of Dispute Resolution, which is when special education cases go to due process, where school districts are losing time and time again, especially recently since COVID, is the area of executive function. And I think, when you think and consider that students a lot of time when they go home, parents use the built-in babysitter, which is the cell phone or the iPad, that sort of thing. And I think kids are losing out on those opportunities to use some of those executive function skills. So I think this is an area for us that's, it's really exciting. I think the work they're doing has been phenomenal. So just as far as how this is paid for at the school district level, we have used ESSER's funds to pay for this partnership. ESSER's funds run out in September of 2024. ESSER's was developed as COVID relief. So what I've done is I've asked the Department of Education to see if we are able to use ESSER's funds to pay for this program this summer that would extend throughout the course of this next school year.
Paid in advance, in other words.
Paid in advance. Sometimes the Department of Education gets a little iffy with things when you're paying advance for something. So I emailed PDE. The answer I got back initially was, we don't see that as being a problem, but let me take it up a step So as of right now, I can't tell you for certain whether ESSERS will pay for it, but at least early on, I think that it will. So what we could do is we could bring this back, put it on the board agenda, and I can have more information for the board on, whether ESSERS will pay for it or not.
Justin, I can back you up with that because a couple of my kids have actually gone through this and have benefited incredibly to the point where thinking about one of my older sons was really, really struggled with expressing himself. And I know just from the work that you guys and your team have done with, I think, 2 of my kids at this point, I think. So it might be more, but it's been out invaluable. We have a lot of kids. So, yeah.
Lori, for the general public that's signed in here, could you very briefly explain the critical work that you guys are doing and how it affects the literacy component, which is something we're all interested in?
I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Covert. So the 2 biggest things we work on from a literacy standpoint are phonological awareness, which is identifying the sounds in spoken language, and we incorporate print as much as possible, so it really extends to word reading. But phonological awareness by itself really is important for both word reading and spelling. And so those kiddos are identified by the reading specialists and or the school psychologist based on how they perform in the Acadience assessments. So they have different data points that they look at that flag them as potential students that might benefit from our services in those areas. And then we dive a little deeper just to make sure they truly are in need of our services. And if so, they end up on the caseload, and we provide 10-minute burst sessions. Again, about half of the time they just work on segmenting and blending words. Then we work on something called word ladders or word chains, where they manipulate sounds in words, but then also work on writing and spelling those words.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, just for clarification. So we've had all these services for 3 years.
Yes.
And is this the only source of speech, the speech therapy that we get for our students?
No, we also have our SLPs that work directly with students. Their caseloads often get up to around 60, 65 students.
There's 4
Oh.
in the
Yeah,
district.
and we have 4 in the district.
Okay. And I'm new in the school board. This is just my first month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
another
question.
thing, as far as the hearing screenings, are those the only times our students, those are the benchmark for hearing, and they don't have hearing tests any other time?
Yeah, we use those as.
And it's a PDE requirement. We don't do them other times.
We do. Our nurses had done them previously,
Right.
and this is helping support all of the work that our nurses have done.
Just have a question for you. So when we use our own versus use an IEP?
So we do our SLPs, they do an evaluation process. And if students are identified as having an issue with speech, that's when they're put onto their caseloads. Where this helps us is if you look at our special education data, it'll show you that we have higher amounts of students that are receiving speech services than most school districts. And we could probably have a 5-hour discussion on that alone. But what this does is it provides those supports and services that kids need prior to identifying them with having a disability.
Okay.
A lot of this is preventative.
Yeah. And if you think about like
It's
the,
intervention, but it's also prevention in some aspects.
And there are times
Yeah.
that if they're not making progress with their team, they're then moved to a speech caseload.
Okay. Got it.
So
Okay.
essentially, they're kiddos, and I'm sorry, Dr.
Well, and also to qualify for special education through the speech language pathologist, there needs to be an academic need. And there are times when kindergartners may not say their sounds correctly, but at that point in time, they're not academically behind. So that can help with getting those sounds fixed before they become an academic issue. And there's also, the sounds also very much relate to literacy. So sometimes when they can't say the sounds, they can't read themselves, they read them incorrectly.
I see.
So it
Okay.
is very much preventative before there is.
Okay. No, that helps.
The principals, do you have anything to add that you want to?
I mean, we're just so grateful for the services. We've really done, I think, a tremendous job adding to our tier 2 interventions.
And it's just such a neat partnership because what a great opportunity for these graduate students also to be able to have that hands-on experience working with children, but yet still being overseen. And I'll watch at times, I'll pop down and, they'll pop in, and if a student is maybe delivering the service, like, needs tweaked a little bit, they jump in, they model, they show the student what it should look like with the child, and then they back off, they let them, and then they give feedback right there. So it's just a beautiful cycle of continuous feedback. And I think it's really just benefiting students, both little and big.
That's great.
And there are a lot of times, especially with our hesitant kiddos, that I will say, I'm a teacher at IUP and you're helping me teach this student. So you have a really big job here to help me teach them how to be, and I just call it a speech teacher, but they really do get excited about being a teacher as well.
They all want to go. They all want, why can't I go? Not today.
They also push in our pre-K programs as well, and that's something they didn't
I was gonna
mention.
ask
So
That's great.
some of our
Yeah.
youngest kids that, they're getting kind of a jump start on it.
That's great.
That is great.
Just the ones that I've had at Eisenhower and Horseman, they've been invaluable in helping. They do a lot of helping with the progress monitoring at Eisenhower. They help us keep up with that because that can become a task that is easily we get behind on. So they've been doing a lot of that this year. They've been doing an excellent job of that. Sometimes they'll do some math interventions using the spring math stuff. We're working on terminology, but we're getting there. But we'll get there. And then Horseman, they're also doing some things with some, like they'll do some what we call some 10-minute dips where they'll do some sound work or some multisyllabic words with the 95% group, those kinds of things. Also, whenever I was desperate last week because everybody called off, I had 3 young ladies who were very eager to help out in the lunchroom, and I really appreciated that greatly.
Wow.
I really appreciated that greatly in Horseman because we had everybody call off that was supposed to be in the lunchroom, and I'm like, girls, can you please help me out? And they were all very willing to help out. We are going on a field trip to see the Underground Railroad Museum, and that falls on a Wednesday, so some of the girls are gonna get to go with us on that and help supervise the trip, and we appreciate those extra hands, eyes, and things like that. So they're invaluable in the actual teaching of the students and working with that. They're also invaluable in those things that you need people for, and you can't run a school without. So I'm so grateful to have them.
That's so great.
So if the board is okay with it, I can get it put onto the agenda for next Monday.
Right, and you'll
Yeah.
find out about the grant.
Well, and I mean, even, $91,000 for, we have 15 interns, 8 GAs, so that's 23 graduate students, 4 IUP faculty members. I mean, 91,000 is kind of a steal for that.
I agree, Sue.
I mean, really, when you're thinking of that, and
Have we
Some
cleaned
of them
out
are
the
two
closet-
full
have we
days
cleaned out
and
the
2 half
closet over there
days.
yet? I mean,
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, have we cleaned out the closet over there yet?
servicing about 1,000 students. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. So, yeah, absolutely, I would say put it on the agenda.
So Dr. Rigg, if you are okay with it, Patrick Mulvihill is here. He's from Point Park. So we would be going back to agenda item number 1, if that's okay.
Well, I want to thank,
I wanted to also tell you
Please.
that, now, this was back in the 50s. I had terrible speech defect. And someone from the IU came up from Evansburg and worked with me, and I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't had that. And that's amazing when I think back that they actually did something for me back that long ago. So I'm all for speech therapy.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
I always have a story to tell.
We try it with our kids, like especially the youngest. We try not to cry.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
when
when people used to
older.
make fun of me.
So Mr. Mulvihill
So
is
cute,
here?
they would,
Would you
I know,
like to join
those
us?
are so cute, they say this.
Just before Patrick gets started, so I did put into your packets a little flyer from Point Park University. It's Rowland School of Business.
That's correct.
All right, so without further ado, Patrick, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board this evening. Just to give you a little background on myself. I am a faculty member and chair of the Department of Management in the Rowland School of Business, which is at Point Park University right in downtown Pittsburgh. I do live here in the community. We have young ones in the senior high as well as Ben Franklin. So we're rooted here pretty well. And I also have the great pleasure of serving as the primary flight instructor for the aviation students in the senior high.
Oh,
as
I
well.
didn't know
So,
that.
Yeah, we have all kinds of exciting hats and exciting projects.
And you'll
So-
be excited about our next presenter.
I know, Leah. We're working with her right now on a dual enrollment concurrent degree
Yeah,
between my
that's the-
department and
right.
the aviation program of the CCBC.
right.
And that actually all emerged from the group of senior high students that I fly with, who have the opportunity to take the dual enrollment credits, which is going to get them so far down the road towards their aviation career. So, like I said, I'm excited to see that happening. But for our staff, starting with Point Park University and our business programs, we have an exciting opportunity to kind of accelerate our high school students' pathway towards their chosen profession. What's happening right now is pretty unique in the market, where we have employers from not only regionally, but domestically and internationally, who are basically asking us to see if they can get our graduates from our business programs into the workforce sooner, right? Sometimes even as early as their junior year. So we're coming up with creative ways to kind of essentially extend our internships and our co-ops so that they can make that happen. The other thing that was relatively unique, and I'll talk about our accelerated program here shortly, is that we have high schools that approach us. And they basically said that they're having students finish their high school curriculum during their junior year. And so their request was, is there any way we can essentially enhance the dual enrollment programs that we currently have in place? And so we had already been working in the background, taking our 4-year degrees and shrinking them down to a 3-year degree footprint already. And so the pull on both ends of this kind of chain between the professional industry and our high school students was kind of the last solidifying variable for me that said, okay, we're going to move on this. So about a year ago, we transitioned all of our Bachelor of Science programs in business management, HR, marketing and sales, entrepreneurship, and aviation is going to come online as well. And so that was the first part for the 3-year degree footprint. And then we partnered with a handful of local high schools who this fall, we have our first batch of about 20 students that have essentially completed their first year of college in high school. And so you think of the time saving for college and also the tuition, at the dual enrollment rate, I mean, you're looking at about $2,500 for your first year of college. And so we're not diminishing academic rigor. We're including internships in that experience as well as study abroad. So the opportunity to extend that, right here into Indiana, like I said, with our son being in 9th grade, so that's the only reason I said I didn't push it here, right? Because I always looked at IUP as kind of owning this area. And so we're here today to kind of present that opportunity to the Indiana Area School District as well. It's not curriculum just focused on 9th through 12th. We're also currently working with the Buell Foundation to augment curriculum back into middle school. They're currently working with us and looking to fund around between $250,000 to $500,000 in terms of a grant to support the curriculum and resources going to the middle school to focus on both career development and financial literacy, which is, as you know, which is a big area right now with PD in the state. So that is where we're at.
So Pat, how do you actually deliver the program?
Right.
Is it college in the high school? Are you going to have a branch campus here in Indiana?
Yeah.
Is there?
So this is what's interesting. Really good question, Mr. Drumm. It's they came to us because what they were seeing at other universities was there was always a requirement to be on campus somewhere, and we said, let's just get rid of that because we feel that our online delivery and the way that we facilitate classes in that online environment is highly effective. So all of the classes are taken online, right, via our faculty. Or if you have teachers that are certainly certified and qualified to teach these courses, and a lot of the high school teachers already are, right, those teachers are teaching the courses on our behalf, and we're providing additional resources to support them in the classroom if they need them. So, yeah, and it's kind of interesting. Like I said, they've almost just taken a classroom and turned it into their college lab, basically, is what's happening. And so students will leave the traditional pathway and they'll just congregate together, take classes throughout the day while they're in high school, and then continue on with the regular activities that they have occurring. So.
And you said your aviation program is open to this dual enrollment as well?
Yes, and you'll hear from Leah, I think, this evening.
But I think she's gonna be talking more about the drone.
So yes, yeah, if
Well,
she
you're
is
talking more about
professional pilot,
private pilot, commercial pilot.
correct. That's correct.
And so do you work with the Beaver County Community College in their program?
I work with
Or how do
Dr.
you
Higgs.
deliver that as well?
Yes, so the way that works is the students would obviously partner go to school at CCBC, right? They would have the articulation agreement or the MO with you here at Indiana Area School District. They would pursue and complete the associate's degree through the dual enrollment program that they have. And then once they get that 60 to 65 credits, at that point, they're done with all their ratings and all their training. Then they can transition into the bachelor's program at our university, which is fully online, because at that point in time, most of those students will be instructing, taking low time flying jobs to build their hours.
So your involvement with the students is more of a club activity at Point Park, or is it?
So you're speaking with regards to the high school students right now?
Yes.
I serve primarily as the flight instructor for your high school students here who are training in Indiana.
Our flight. So you're a double I?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. And I have flown commercially before as a charter pilot, but I got pulled into higher education and have enjoyed my time here. I don't want to leave just yet, so.
So if the board would decide that this is the right fit, what would our next steps be?
I think our next steps would be really looking at the curriculum that is currently in place in the high school, and then the range of courses that we have available for you. You'll see that it's primarily the freshman and sophomore classes, a lot of the principal's level classes, and then you would just look at integrating that into your current curriculum pathways. So, and I've actually kind of started that process a little bit. I kind of grabbed one of the sheets from the last 2 open houses here at the senior high, just to kind of get a sense of like at least the business, IT, cybersecurity operations.
So the other, to follow up on that, do you have agreements with IUP, Westmoreland? So the coursework or the college in the classroom, that coursework that our students already have is transferable and don't have to be repeated?
It's a very good question. We have articulation agreements with all of the local community colleges. And if you look at the first, second, and third year programs at colleges and universities in the area, in those programs, we will transfer all of the credits in. So it's very rare nowadays that credits don't transfer between universities. So.
And if these courses are taught by the school district, you mentioned some schools have a college lab. Do you provide the resources for them, or do we provide the resources?
So can you clarify resources?
Anything that they need to teach the course,
Okay.
like whatever you're saying these students need, books,
Correct.
materials, lab.
Yeah, so for example, if you're already teaching, I'll take for example, a financial literacy course, right? So if you look at that curriculum and you need a better textbook, or you need additional assignments or resources for the class, we will provide that.
You will.
In some cases, when you get into cybersecurity, I know for one of the school districts, we provided some server farms that allowed them to get on the dark web, do explorations through there. So we usually take that on a program or course by course basis, because we found that if the school district already has a great course in place, we don't want to change that. Right? So we'll try to certify the teacher and just have that relationship continue. But like I said, if the opportunity there is to augment or provide additional resources or industry connections, we're happy to do that.
Sounds good. So if the board is,
Anyone else have questions?
I would like to say that Point Park was a great university for my daughter.
Good. Okay,
It was
that's a
much
good
better.
plug.
She was in photography.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So she went from there to New York and doing stuff. So it's kind of a school that's under the radar. They have a tremendous performing arts program in both performance and in technical theater. I was down one night talking to a lighting guy. He said, "Oh, I'm not worried. I'm going to go to New York and get a job as soon as I step off the bus."
A little insider tip, if you guys are fans of Joe Grishecki, we just had a meeting with him today. I think we may be producing his off-Broadway show, so. He's very tourist, so it's kind of fun to talk.
Yeah, so, anyway, I put my support behind Point Park, because you don't hear anything about it very much.
Pat, I'm curious about your accelerated program to get the students into the marketplace with their 4-year degrees, now maybe 3-year.
Yes, it is.
So what kind of issues, because one of the things we've looked at here is the possibility of trying to develop some sort of an associate degree program. So are there any issues with trying to accelerate that 4-year, or how would things that we would need to consider, because we're in the developmental stages of the associate degree, and maybe that's the way to go, or maybe what you're talking about is a better way to go. So what are the ins and outs of that?
I really do think that we could offer an associate's degree program through Westmoreland Community College, and also do this as its own pathway. So I think you could, I think if we would be able to offer both, I think that would be just giving more students more opportunities.
Okay.
So I think both can be done.
Yeah, I would certainly encourage that idea and explore those pathways. I'll tell you what, the secret to the sauce was, it wasn't the length of courses or the times that they were in the courses. We just took a significantly deep dive on our curriculum, course by course. And basically what ended up happening was you kind of grouped courses a little bit differently based upon content. And we lifted some content out of those courses, and there's a semester-long experiential project that takes place each semester. Right? So that enabled a little bit of a lesser burden each semester. And then the other really unique outcome was that they were retaining information not only across classes, but from semester to semester, instead of seeing each course as kind of its little compartmentalized journey, so to speak. So I think there was a little bit of hesitancy with the students in terms of the workload and just the compressed timing. So I think once we kind of hit that realization of we just need to repackage the curriculum a little bit differently, when we figured out how to do that effectively, that kind of addressed the big concerns. So,
And then, so do you have any limitations on the students for selection of being involved in this? Or is it up to the school district to make that kind of a determination? In other words, if I've got a 2.5 and I really want to go do this, can I still do it? Or do I have to have that 4.0 in order to participate in this program? And I'm kind of picking the extremes here.
So certainly something like this would probably be more in line with somebody who might be a little bit more academically aggressive, perhaps, right? But I think to answer your question, I did not change the entry requirements, right? We kept the university standards, and I think it's like a 2.7, right? The other consideration was, which kind of addresses your point too, with regards to, you'll have some students that may only take 3 or 4 courses, and you have others that may take up to 20, right? And so if you look at the list of courses that are on there and you're utilized in high school, you're looking at freshman, maybe sophomore level courses, and those run every semester, right? So whether they take 2 or 3 or they take 15 courses, you're going to be able to be kind of woven into that pathway. And so you'll have that flexibility to kind of basically start wherever you need to start based upon how many classes you've taken in high school. And that's just as a result, those are just the kind of core foundational courses that you have to take in the School of Business that are included on those sheets. So that's how we kind of focused and addressed that particular concern.
There's no grade requirement on your part as far as having a high school level just to take these dual enrollment courses while they're still in high school.
No, because they're either going to take the college level class, like with us, or if you already have a class that you're teaching, we would certify it and your teachers would teach it and it would meet our requirements anyway. Right?
Okay.
So, and if you look, in all honesty, your Indiana Area School District does a tremendous job with the courses that they're teaching now and the quality and the level of work that I see from your students. I mean, it's just as good as some of our first year college students anyway. I mean, the robotics club, the combat bots from last semester, I was looking through some of those business plans. I think those were sharp. They were really good. Like I said, I think that carries across all of your student body.
Thank you.
Patrick, is there anything out there, say that there's a student that can't quite afford the price for the 3 credit enrollment? So something for folks that are struggling somewhat to meet that.
Yeah, so what I've seen so far is we're trying to set up a scholarship for the dual enrolled students to reach back into high school. That's my goal for the next academic year. I've seen students take advantage of kind of district foundational funding. So that's kind of what's in place right now. But to be honest with you, at the college level, paying for the credits, I haven't seen too much of that happening outside of just foundations and grants.
And Chris, that's a great point that you bring up, because that is a major issue, in that many students, while they're taking college courses in high school, are not eligible for financial aid as well. So that complicates matters even a little bit further. So I think the work that we've started with the foundation and other things, I think that will help with it, but it's a major issue. You bring up.
Absolutely.
True.
You think how
That's a
many
good
students
point.
miss this? You know?
Yeah, how many students aren't even thinking about the
Because they can't
opportunity because
afford
they can't?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they're
that's
not
who
getting
we
that
want.
same early start that everyone else
Right.
is.
What kind of number are we talking about?
Well, it's $250 per course is the base.
Per course.
Right, per course. Now, they also have in the contract, if you have 10 or more students, it drops down to $195. But I would say
Is that 10 or more in one class or 10 or more
That's-
in all classes?
one group, right? So your group of students, if you have 10 students from Indiana enrolled, it would drop down to that. Honestly, I would go back and push it even more, right? So, I mean, if it were me, if you guys ultimately decide that this is valuable for your school, I have no problem going to the CFO and saying, this is what I think we should do. So I like kind of innovation and pushing the boundaries a little bit. So if they, like, I have no problem.
So you said 250, not, it says 225.
Or 225.
225,
I apologize, yeah, so it's.
But 10 or more.
Half of our kids approximately are free and reduced lunch.
That's right.
And we are struggling with making sure that those kids have opportunities that the doctors, lawyers kids have.
Right.
Yes.
And it's difficult.
Yeah.
That's your point.
It is.
But we've really been struggling to figure this out.
Right.
And I think to Tom's point too, so not only is 50% free and reduced lunch, 15% are census poor, which that's a different level of poverty. And many of those
I'm
students,
sorry, 15% are what?
15% are census poor poverty,
What is
which
that?
the income requirements go down to about $24,000 median for a family. When I believe the requirement for free and reduced lunches is around, I believe, don't quote me on it, but I think it's around like $50,000 or $60,000. So the census poverty is much, the threshold is much smaller.
And our theory is that we can get a kid that is in that group to get a couple college credits at some price, but some credits in their back pocket. And maybe that'll be enough to trigger them to go on.
We're giving them a head start.
It will give them a head start, but also knowing that they can actually do the work, they can dream a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and they can buckle down and figure out a way to get it done.
From my end, and again, I'm just thinking about this on the top of my head. If you look at the first initial courses, something like an introduction to business, a financial literacy course, and a career kind of exploration or planning course. Like, it would be interesting to me to see if I can get those three packaged almost at a significantly reduced cost. Right, so that's 369 credits. And so that's
Well, and that
just a
would,
step
that
down
would
the
be,
road.
yeah, that would be a gateway.
Right,
I start with 9 credits, which is more credits than I've ever had before.
right.
And I'm also find that I can be successful in the college course,
That's right.
which is,
And you have this going down as low as 8th grade? At 8th grade?
That's my goal.
Do we allow,
So Ohio does
do we
this
allow
now,
8th graders
right?
to do Dual Enrollment?
We
Yeah.
can, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to start with the career exploration. So I'm doing some lunch and learns with Erica Aiken in the middle school coming up. But that's
You were saying about Ohio.
Yeah, so Ohio has this exact model in place right now, and they start in 7th grade with college credits, right? And so if you look at their projection over the last 5 years, the amount of students graduating with an associate's degree, and they started, I think it was somewhere around like 200 to 300. They may be up to close to 1,200 students a year graduating with associates. So and that's why I included it on here, because again, I know the Buell Foundation is 100% behind the middle school reach for us. But again, their focus is.
Which foundation?
Buell Foundation.
Now, and one of the advantages is the Buell Foundation won't fund Indiana County, but they may fund Point Park.
Correct. So that's where, honestly, we were just meeting with River Valley this morning. It's that same cycle, right? So they won't fund this, but if we can secure the funds, then we can filter them out to the school districts out here. Right? So, but yeah, I'm really pushing to move that back. I would love to see 9th graders take at least like a college writing class, because as you guys talked about, it's that gateway, right? So if we can get those short wins, even if it's just 9 credits, that's 9 credits towards community college, or if they do decide or they have the ability to move on. And at the end of the day, our dean and I are on the same page that, I don't honestly care if they come to Point Park. It would be awesome if we get 1 or 2 or 3, but just to be able to play a significant role in the foundation of these students, because I don't think anybody's looking at this right now. To be honest with you. You're correct.
So as far as next steps, we're not asking for any like type of agreement to a contract or anything like that tonight. All I would ask for your permission to do is to just explore it further.
I think that's fair.
Anything from the audience?
So
I think it's a wonderful idea and opportunity for our kids. Broaden our dual credit opportunity.
Yeah.
We have Nathaniel Arthur's over here right now, which I'd like to give a quick introduction for his turn, but what he is doing is really complementing ideas like these with experiential activities and club programs. One of the issues, and Mr. Troth, you'd asked about any issues, one of the things that we are running into is about the finances, is that the schools with whom we have partnership agreements, the students have to take 51% of the credit loads for their institution at their regular tuition price. And they can do 49% through the dual credit or dual enrollment price, which is significantly lower. But that 51% still has to go through the school. And we're really trying to figure out a way that we can make that possible for our students, because the financial aid is not available to high school students.
Right.
So that is an impediment. But, 49% at this time, if we can do this through our programming, will be excellent. Working with Justin and WCCC, we've identified 4 or 5 different pathways already. We think this pathway would be an excellent opportunity in addition to our program as well.
So the issue of the student aid availability to high school students, that's a legislative issue, or is that a different?
That could be a legislative issue, but as of right now, it does not exist.
It is federal, so.
Does it not exist at the college level, or is it
That's why I threw it.
is it something that we can change?
It exists at the college level for college students, but it does not exist at the college level for dual enrollment.
And that restriction is legislative, or is it
It's federal. It's
It's a federal money.
bureaucratic? Is it
Pretty sure
bureaucratic?
it's federal
or-
student aid, you have to
Yes,
have graduated from high school in order to be eligible for
Right.
financial aid from the federal government.
I'm wondering if you have to be 18, I'm
So
not
you do
sure.
No, it's you have to have your high school.
You just have to have
college.
graduate.
You have a high school
Yeah.
diploma, because
That might be it
like
too.
once, like my daughter graduated 2 years early, so she was 16 when she graduated. But you can fill out the FAFSA, but once you
Okay.
have the high school diploma.
Good to know.
That seems
And
like
that
something
is, you
we
have
can
to
change.
have the diploma,
Right.
not necessarily the age.
But what we're doing now with these inroads for the 49% is really building structure and capacity so that if something would change, our students will be poised financially to be able to have that assistance. But as of right now, that 49% at discounted rates is very helpful to our students.
And those are all while they're in high school. You're talking about the 49% and the 51%. Those are while they're in high school doing the dual enrollment.
That's correct.
So if they start the dual enrollment, they know they're going to have to pay 51% of their credits full tuition.
They can take those classes once they hit the 49%, begin this through a dual enrollment.
Right.
Again, that'll be at that 51.
Right.
That'll be at the full tuition rate.
So Justin, before we leave this, you had this down as an agenda item.
Yeah,
And if you're not asking for formal approval, is there something that we need to put on the agenda for next Monday night's meeting?
There really isn't. We could put it on the agenda to say that we give permission to explore it, but I don't think
Why
that's
don't I just
necessary.
put that in the report?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
so that
we-
we,
yeah, we-
part of
Yeah, the
the
board
conversation,
members
we're
have-
interested in exploring
That
it
makes sense.
further, and we'll bring it back to this committee and the board to
Makes
take
sense.
action if.
Not a problem. So but when it was on as an agenda item, I just wanted to make sure if there wasn't a contract or an
Yeah.
agreement we were ratifying, that there wasn't some other issue with it. That's
Yeah.
all.
At this, and the next item is also going to be the same.
Okay.
And Patrick, you're going to talk with the, whoever at your university about the 9 credits. Yeah.
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was funny, it was sort of along those same conversations. The leading question was, so you're telling me that our high school students can take as many dual enrollment credits as they want? And she was okay with that. So we're gonna keep pushing that down. But yeah, if I can get it, it'll be very interesting to, like you said, if we can develop, as you said, the gateway, right? So whether that's, 6 credits, 9 credits, but it would be nice to have the stuff that is already happening in your classes, simply just get college credit for. And, I'd love to see that happen. And then, like I said, if we can get that at a significantly reduced rate, then continue on.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, and I just, yeah, if you don't mind. My name is Nathaniel Arthurs. I'm just a community volunteer to help out with the aviation club. There was 175 volunteers that helped put on the air show. I came to Wade and said, hey, Wade, I had this crazy idea. Let's do an aviation club. He put it out there. Mr. Pushkar grabbed a hold of it. I think this is our 3rd or 4th year, Wade.
Sounds right.
Okay, so we're pushing through. Right now, we have 3 students. There's 11 students we have. 3 of them right now are working on a private pilot.
Nice.
And this is the man that's doing it, just so you
Right.
guys know that. And every year we have one going on further with it. The whole world of aviation is wide open. So I'm very career oriented on everything. If you want to get in the FAA, if you want to be an air traffic controller, you can be a flight attendant. If you want to be an avionics, you want to be a mechanic, you want to be a pilot, you want to be a personal pilot, corporate pilot, commercial pilot, whatever it is, it's wide open. And these commercial pilots only working 1,000 hours a year is what they're required to fly. Evan McAnulty here locally, he's flying cross country, international right now, international, Germany, France, England, and he's only flying 600 hours a year. And he'll have 15 days off, full benefits, and it's amazing at age 27, 26 years of age, what he's doing. So the opportunity these kids have right now, it is wide open. I am telling you what, grab a hold of this. We're trying to work also with Penn Tech College and PIA to do the same type of thing for anybody who wants to get in the mechanical part of it. But this is fantastic, I'm telling you. And everything we do, we've had guest speakers coming here from engineering. Astrobotics just shot off the rover to the moon. They're allowing us to do a field trip too. So we're trying to organize that as a bonus field trip this year as well for the kids, help inspire them. That's what we're doing. So it's a lot of good stuff.
And someone can answer this question, maybe you, but can the students in high school enter that program, the club, at any age, at any level, or do they have to start at freshman, sophomore?
Mine's 9th through 12th.
But do they have to start in 9th then?
So I'm in the senior high school.
Okay, I'm asking.
No,
Wade.
those students can, they have club signups in September. They
Okay.
can join any club.
Okay.
So we have a aviation camp that Daniel is part of as well, and we have kids in Indiana from 4th grade up.
Oh my God,
So we were
I'm
spending
so
a week
excited
last
about
summer,
it.
so.
I just learned about it because of the agenda item. When I clicked on, I'm going like, oh, I didn't know we had that.
I think Jim Struzzi and Chrissy Struzzi's son is doing it too, right?
Yep.
Because they
He's
talk
in the
about.
Solar Air Patrol.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I saw that.
But the clubs work out to be about 11 hours a year. Is that what it works out? I think we're trying to calculate that. So that's all the time that I have with the students, and it's every other week. But we're thankful for that. And it's helping to inspire people. We all just
Whose
do a little
planes do they use when they do get to the airport? Who,
Pardon?
is it your plane? Like who's?
No.
Okay. I asked questions.
No, it's Innovative Aviation.
Oh, yeah, okay, I know what that is.
So
And
it's interesting.
there's also introductory flights out there. If any child wants to get a flight to see if this is what they want to do,
Or any
it's
really,
free.
old- or any really old person.
It's free right
Do you
now.
have to go out there? Because I called a couple times, but you have to. Okay, I was gonna say, I need your.
Can Sally
You
do
get in contact with Patrick and I.
Sally wants her license.
Is there an age limit, like you have to be, you can't be so old?
So
It's your health.
my youngest,
Sarah, I'm not
I fly
flying
with
with
is
you.
like 6, and the oldest I fly with is 94.
Oh, good, I'm not that old yet.
As long as you're in that.
Wait, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, the thing is that this is an every other week club. It's because other every other week is the sailing club.
Oh,
Oh,
Kevin,
jeez.
get out, you're talented.
Yeah, well, no, there's a team with us. It's just not me. It's-
And you do
I'm
it
just one of many.
Yellow
We're all-
Creek.
With Friends of Yellow Creek, and Dr. Sherwood from my.
Bless you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I didn't even know
okay, I
there
knew
was a
that.
sailing club.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
there's a
much,
sailing club.
Patrick.
That is so
And
cool.
actually, aviation and sailing, a lot of it's very similar to what we work. So.
Every third Monday, they land on Yellow Creek.
Oh,
Yes, with a floating plane.
with the float plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, I'll take that. No,
I
you-
know, Mr.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
We're neighbors. so-
that would be cool. Yeah.
So our next speaker is here. At your tables is a one-page flyer about the Aviation Academy. Our next speaker is Lauren Susan. I hope I got that right. So Lauren, you are up.
Thanks, Justin.
Oh, you're-
So I don't know, am I able to share my screen, Justin? Because I do have an actual formal presentation that I wanted to share.
Yeah, Randy, is she able to do that?
Yep, I turned on Sheen's screen sharing just right now, so go ahead and try it.
Okay, perfect.
Randy, I can't log in. Is he listening?
Looks like it's coming slowly.
She's used to me.
So this is not Leah, correct?
Oh.
This is
No,
Lauren.
it's Lauren. I'm actually the dean for the program, so I normally present to the boards. So Leah works a lot with our schools when it comes to communicating and, working out the logistics and things like that. But normally when you can all hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, I just wanted to kind of come to you as the board and talk to you a little bit about our overarching program. I know Patrick kind of alluded to our program a little bit because we have been working with Patrick as well. But our program, just to kind of start, and I know you were talking a little bit about financial aid, and that I can give you a little bit of insight into that because CCBC was actually part of an experimental program that the federal government did to allow high school students to actually apply for financial aid. That experiment has since gone away. So that has obviously impacted our program because all the students that you're talking about that you want to be able to offer these opportunities were the students that were able to get financial aid at that time, so that they could have some of our students that fell within the certain threshold came to our program for free at one point. That no longer exists. So just to kind of jump off, what we do at CCBC to help students defray the cost is right now through our foundation, as Patrick mentioned a little bit, is we offer small scholarships. They are not full scholarships, but there are small scholarships that students that fall within certain socioeconomic thresholds can apply for to try and get to help each semester. So I just wanted to give you a little insight on that because I know you were talking about, is this legislative, is this federal? It's at the federal level. And we're actually right now looking at how that impacted our students to send a report to them just to kind of show like how beneficial this is. That program, that experimental program was to try and push maybe to get some movement to maybe get that back. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of insight before I kind of started. So our program, this is our academy team. So we at CCBC have 6 different pathways, but tonight we're focusing on the aviation. That's what Justin asked us to kind of focus on this evening. And this is our team. So I oversee all of the high school programming at the Community College of Beaver County. Leah is my right-hand person, and she's been talking a lot with Justin. And then we have Mickey Sirac, kind of is our administrative support. And then Captain Best is our champion for the aviation pathway. And basically that's a support person for our students, anybody in our aviation academy to go to if they have any problems during this time, because again, we understand these are high school students trying to adjust to balance both high school and college at the same time. So Mr. Best does teach some of the courses for them, but he also tracks them when they're not in his classes, and he reports to us at all times. So he'll report to Leah and I if there's any red flags for students, so that we can communicate back to the school or to the parent if necessary to kind of say, hey, this is what we're seeing. How can we get this student back on track? So that's one unique thing about our model that we do have, is that we do have a champion specifically in place in each of our pathways. So just to give you some context, because I know there's a lot of language being thrown around where there's dual enrollment, there's college and high school, and now for us, there's academies. So with our academies, that is our 6th distinguished model that we really tout on. And that is because this is a dual enrollment program, but it's prescribed pathways in all 6 of those that you can see there. So aviation, which we're focusing on tonight. So we also oversee dual enrollment, which is more the a la carte way to take classes. So if a student just wants to come to CCBC and take a math or an English, that's what we consider as just a strictly dual enrollment. And then we have college and high school. What Patrick was referring to is where your teachers might be certified at our qualifications to teach our curriculum at your school. But for tonight's sake, we're focusing just on the Aviation Academy. So that does not include college and high school at this time as an option. So our academies were established back in 2015 with the Aviation Academy. So this model really started with the aviation model. We typically work with around 150 plus students in our program on average every year between all of our academies. Around 60 of those students are 1st and 2nd year academy, and that's growing. And the reason for that is because we're expanding across the state, not just the academies, but our overarching aviation program at CCBC. I heard someone mention about drones. Unfortunately, we don't have a drone program. So the curriculum that you have, I believe, in front of you, as well as up on the screen, is for any student that would want to go into either becoming a professional pilot, an air traffic controller, or also what we call aerospace management, which is more the business aspect of aviation. So again, we do not have a drone program currently. So again, it would just be those 3 pathways. All the students that go into either of those pathways that I mentioned take all the same courses. So those courses you're seeing, all the students, no matter what path they want to do, are in these courses together. So the only difference you might see is in that 2nd semester, there's AVIP 160 and AVIC. The only difference is if it's an air traffic controller, they take the AVIC version, or if it's a professional pilot, they take an AVIP version of that. But again, it's just different outcomes that they have to meet in that same course. So again, you know, our air traffic controllers, they have to fly, but they do not have to get a private pilot license, where a professional pilot student does have to get a pilot license. So again, there are some differences in that sense. So the way you can see the curriculum is set up is this is for juniors and seniors in high school. So they spend 2 years with us doing this program. And again, it's 7 credits each semester, because again, we have to keep in mind these students are trying to balance both high school and college. We have some schools that partner with us that actually count these classes towards their high school graduation. We also have high schools that do not. I know we've been approached and we've been hearing through the grapevine that there's legislation out there that when high schools are partnering, it is recommended that they're using these college courses towards their GPA and towards high school graduation. But again, we have schools that do kind of all over the board when it comes to that. So that would really be up to you as the school district, how you're going to apply these credits towards the student's graduation, if you are going to count those or not. So we don't tell the students one way or the other on that. We refer to the school with that. So again, when I know a lot of questions that came to Patrick, is if the students do this 2 years, they can earn up to 28 college credits that then they can matriculate after high school to CCBC to finish out that professional pilot degree, associate's degree, or the air traffic control associate's degree. And then we're in talks with Patrick with Point Park to try and then have them matriculate over to finish out that bachelor's degree. We already do have agreements with four-year schools that we have for aviation management that they can go on and get their aviation management degree, which then the school takes all of those credits from our associate's degree. So again, we want to create that clear pathway all the way from junior year through the bachelor's degree for the students. So it's a seamless kind of transition for them all the way through if that's what they choose to do. We do have admissions requirements. So when you're asking about GPA, they have to have a 2.5 overall high school GPA. They have to have taken and passed an Algebra 1. And we also want the student to have good conduct and attendance because it's important. These are college classes. So we don't change the syllabus. Some of our students are blended in with other college students. So again, their expectation is the same as our students going through this as a regular college student. So we don't change anything to that. We keep them at that expectation, just like the college students. So these are the class sessions. Again, I know this is getting really into detail, but it's important for the school to know this is how we offer the classes. So for your students, they're obviously not near one of our physical locations. So they would be able to do these classes online live. And what that means is this time frame, either the AM or the PM, would have to be carved out of their day, Monday through Friday. And they would join into the classroom live, just kind of like we're doing today for this meeting. So their faculty member would be in a physical classroom, they're syncing in live. So the faculty can call on them just as though they're in that physical classroom and they're going to see the other students that are in the physical classroom at our main campus in Chippewa. So they would kind of be blended in with those students, the high school students and college students, if there are any college students in that section. So it's an online live. So they have to have their cameras on. They have to have all that so that they can interact just like we are this evening. We also talk about flight school partners. So I know that your school partners, I believe, with Patrick, and he's not listed there. And the only reason is because when students are doing our academy, if they plan to do, they can do their private as what's called Part 61, which I believe is what Patrick's flight school is. So they can do their private with Patrick, no issues, as a Part 61 student. So if they get their license on their own or they're already doing it before they come to our program, that's no issue. But if they start to do our academy classes and they want to start flying and they want to do that, they're going to have to go to a Part 141 school because our program is a Part 141 program. This can be very confusing and very kind of cumbersome. So again, if there's additional questions after, if you are going to consider this as a program, we can always answer those like little nuanced questions as well. But again, not all students fly when they're in academy, and that goes back to cost because it is definitely an investment when it comes to flying. And again, so that's up to the flight school of what they charge. So they would be flying with one of our contracted flight schools, which we partner with Laurel Highlands and we partner with Knowlton Aviation right now. That's in the region of where you are that the students could go to. So this is going to go to cost. So our out-of-county dual enrollment rate for students is $365 per credit. So it's not per course, it's per credit. So approximately 7 credits, and this is based on this year's cost, and that can fluctuate for next year, is per semester, and you have typically 2 semesters per year. It's around $2,500. That does not include flying if they're going to do that, because again, I say that's definitely an investment. This includes, and you can see all the additional costs and things like that. And I know when you're talking about how to remove those barriers, it is tough because at the high school level, they don't let students do financial aid. So again, I wanted to share the cost to be very transparent and be upfront about what our program would cost your students to do for the program. And this is just a short video, just to kind of, that we always like to share with boards and different partners, just to kind of show. It's 30 seconds. This is a student, his name is Peyton Start. He started with us when he was in high school, and he's now flying for United.
CCBC gave me the opportunity to get my commercial pilot's license before the age of 21. I would absolutely recommend CCBC Aviation Academy to any high school student who has an interest in flying, because this is the best, most structured path to your career as a professional pilot. With the growth that the industry has to offer right now, there is no better career field out there. At CCBC Aviation Academy, Charlie, Bravo, Charlie.
So that's really the formal presentation. I just want to thank all of you. So I'm open for questions. If there's anything I can, answer, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for all of you to kind of, because I know, again, this is a lot, and our program is a little bit different than what Patrick was talking about, to instill it in the early ages, like 8th grade. So this is really more for juniors and seniors.
Anybody have questions?
Yes, just to be clear, the 7 credit cost was $2,500 more or less?
So that's per semester. So that's covering like around 7 credits. So that's the 2 classes that are listed each semester. That's approximate. And again, that's based on this year. So that could go up. That's about $365 per credit.
Okay, and so to do your full coursework, then I would be doing 4 semesters times 2,500?
Correct. To give you a rough ballpark, absolutely.
Yeah,
And that, again, doesn't include flying. So again, flying is an additional cost if the families want to invest in that as well. The students can begin flying while they're with us, but that'll be up to the flight school depending on what it is per flight. And we always have the students, we tell the students, when it comes to the flight schools, we want them to go and talk to the flight schools, see what type of airplanes they have, because again, that we can't recommend one flight school over the other. We partner with a lot of flight schools. So we really tell them they need to really talk to the flight schools.
Any other questions?
Okay, so I'm being told that the flight school is about another $8,000 or $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a major commitment, but it is
Absolutely. No, and we know that. It's definitely an investment, but it's getting the students into that seat. And if that video could show anything, I mean, the students that are starting this early, they're able to get into that seat. And right now, I know the gentleman sitting in the room with you, I can't remember his name, but he said, like, right now, there's such an opportunity for students to get into the aviation industry in many facets. So again, it's a great opportunity if they can get a jump start, because they can actually get in even, earlier. And our program allows them to do that. And because we're a 141 school, if they come and do not just our academy, but our associate's degree program, they do get a reduction in hours and things like that to, really become a full-blown pilot. So, and some of our 4-year agreements with 4-year schools would allow them to do that even more and get that reduction in hours too that they have to accrue. So there is really a benefit to the program if we can get them started.
So if I do the 4 semesters, my senior year, what do I do in my next year? What do I go? What do I sign up for?
Right. So that would just depend, because again, it depends on if you're flying. If you're not, that's going to put you at different places. So typically students do like to fly while they're in our academy. So a lot of our students right now we have a lot of students that are actually really advanced. We have students that are coming to us that are almost have their private pilot license done. And in a situation like that, we have to even look at them a little bit differently. They may be beyond our academy pathway. And so we have to look at more that dual enrollment pathway and kind of build a path for them, because again, they're kind of already advanced. So it just depends. So it's hard to answer that question. So I get that question a lot, is like, well, if I do the 28 credits, how much longer is it going to take for me to get my associate's degree? And again, that all depends on if you're flying or not, because our program, our associate's degree program, they have to go all the way up through a commercial license and multi. So that will take some time. So, again,
how long would that take?
It depends. It really does. It does depend on the student. I have a student right now that is actually outside of he's in high school, and he is so advanced in flying that he actually is going to be getting his commercial license. Now he's a senior in high school, but he's going to be graduating, if everything goes well. He's going to be graduating with his associate's degree and his commercial license at the end of this summer. So he's graduating in May, and he's going to be possibly graduating with his associate's degree. Now, again, that's an advanced student. So that's why it says it just depends. So it's hard to give you definitive. We have students that fly while they're in the academy, get their private, and then when they go into the associate's degree, they're at an instrument level. So it typically could take another year and a half. Again, our weather impacts that. How often is the student flying? All those pieces, because they have to get all the flying done to get our associate's degree.
Okay, but if I understand this right, if I do the full 2 years, within a year or two after graduating from high school, I could have a commercial pilot's license and be looking for employment.
Correct.
Is that right?
So Tom, if you're flying the airplane, there's a certain amount that's dual where you have to have the instructor with you, then you fly a certain amount solo. I'm not sure what the current rates are, but they're going to be in the $100 to $150 an hour. $180 an hour. So, if you were dedicated to it and bank account was not a problem, you'd fly every day. Okay, that the weather was right. And then you could obviously do it much quicker. If you're working and trying to do other things, you're flying maybe 2 times a week.
And what I'm trying to understand is that there's not a coursework demand on this. But it's
there is
a coursework, but I could clear this in a year to year and a half if I did this program.
Correct. So after you do the academy, you're getting 28 college credits. Let's use our professional pilot. That's around 60 some credits. So you have a lot of the coursework in the classroom of that first initial, like private done and some other courses that are part of that program. But again, like he's mentioning, it just depends on the flying. So there's a ground school, which is the actual in-classroom portion, and then there's the actual flying, which is what we make the students go and do with our contracted flight schools. So those things kind of go hand in hand. So you can't get very far on the coursework that's in the classroom if you're not flying. So you kind of have to keep them going simultaneously. But I agree with you that you could, and we have students do that all the time, that after they do our academy for the 2 years, they typically another year and a half to 2 years, they can get the associate's degree, have a commercial license, and kind of even be moving into the bachelor's degree if that's what they choose.
Yeah, but I'm not required to do a 6-year program.
So you have to accrue hours. It's actually really hours. So they have to get so many hours to sit for the restricted ATP exam. So again, that's the key is after most of our students that do our program get the associate's degree, they then become flight instructors with one of our contracted flight schools because they have to accrue hours themselves to be eligible to sit for that. So it's after the degree, they have to accrue hours. So that's where a lot of our students become flight instructors. They're banking those hours that they need then to sit for that restricted ATP exam at the end.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just like the last one, no decision is needed. Just you're okay for me to continue the conversation?
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, and encouraging it, trying to figure out a way, and again, trying to finance some of this stuff so that we can help our kids.
Mm-hmm. So Lauren, is it you or Leah that I reach out to next?
So really, depending on how you decide you're going to move forward, if you want to move forward with an agreement and everything, you can reach out to Leah, let her know that's what you would want to do. And then that's very easy. We have our executive assistant send you your school district over the agreement. You look through it, you sign it, and then we go from there. And Leah normally will, what we call kind of train up the school counselors, because they typically are our contacts at the schools or whoever you want to be, because they're working directly with the students to promote the program and then to build their schedules around, because again, remember that block of time has to be carved out of the students' schedules. So you could reach back out to Leah. That's not an issue at all.
All right. Well, Lauren, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everybody.
All right, Walter, we are done with the screen.
Okay, I've got to see one, I just might stick around here, so, but thank you.
All right, so next up is number 4, discussion of a field trip request. Unfortunately, so Mr. Deneau, this one should be a quick one. Mr. Deneau, he put the request on to our agenda. I put his request onto the agenda. He is requesting to take a group of students to Montreal, Canada. He is the French teacher at our high school. He wasn't able to make it tonight due to an emergency that came up, but his request is listed and a safety plan is also listed. I thought both looked good. If everyone's okay with that request, we'll add it to the agenda for next Monday. And if anybody needs more information, I can ask Mr. Deneau to come to next Monday's board meeting with it on the agenda.
We've done this trip before, I believe.
Yeah, we have.
And-
No, I think it's been a few years, but
Before the pandemic,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we're trying to get these post-pandemic trips restarted.
Right.
Yeah, there was no problem with the trip. It was on this continent. It was to Quebec.
Yes,
And he's driving a van, and then someone else is driving a van if they.
that's correct.
Yeah, which God bless them.
And he put a safety plan in there. Safety plan to me looked good.
I mean, I can't imagine having questions after the way he detailed that whole plan.
That's what I'm trying to say. It was very
good.
detailed, good information.
Yeah.
So we encourage people to follow that model in the future. It's easy to make a good decision.
Sounds good. So we'll get that on the agenda. The next one, number 5, is an agreement with Holland Sims Consultation to provide equity support and consultation. So the reason this came up is we have a PLC that has been running, and it's our Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion group, and it's our PLC group. So our thought was we had talked with them, and we wanted to bring in some real expertise to this group. And the person we reached out to was Nicole Holland Sims. She is a former school psychologist. She was a consultant at Patan, or Patton, however you like to say it, and was also a special advisor to the Secretary of Education. Her specialty has been on equity, so who better to have working with our Jedi folks than someone who was the advisor to the Secretary of Education of the state. The contract is included. This proposal would be paid for completely through ESSER's funds that are available to pay for mental health and equity initiatives. So there is money that's designated for that in our grant, so that grant would pay for it. So just seeking your approval for that.
I have a couple questions on that one. So she will come in and just train some of the teachers? Is there that group that you're talking
Yeah.
about? What did you say the group was? You gave 3 letters.
It's PLC, it's Professional Learning Community.
Okay.
And that group has been working on increasing their knowledge. They've been working on a couple projects. And her job really would just be to provide her expertise from her perspective to that group and to kind of build some capacity within our teachers.
Okay, does that group include teachers from all different levels?
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you know how many about are in that group?
We have, I believe there's 7 or 8 in the PLC.
And then what will they do with the knowledge they learn?
So those groups have typically, after their PLCs are done, they've now there isn't anything that's designated, so I don't want to speak for them, but they have done presentations for whole staff initiatives. They have gone out and met with other groups within their buildings. So that's while I haven't talked with them specifically about the presentations or anything like that, but that's typically what would happen.
Okay. And maybe I'm thinking of something else, but isn't there this is a second part of something or not? And you had another consultant before come in, or am I?
Yeah, I believe we did have someone working with the group previously.
And I think
can't
that
remember the
group
name.
isn't existent anymore. I don't know what happened. Rob said it, told us.
Justin,
What was that?
I think Tim raised his hand.
Tim.
Kind of follow up to your question, typically, and I know Nicole's work with Holland Sims and her work. Typically what she does is she works with that PLC, and then that people from the PLC go back to their PBIS teams, positive behavior interventions and supports teams, which are at every one of the buildings, as I understand, and they help them kind of look at practices they're doing at a systems level with regard to equity. So there is some translated work that she does with the PLCs that does carry back to actionable things within school buildings as it relates to your PBIS frameworks that all of your schools are implementing.
Okay, all right.
Did this request come from the teachers?
The request did come from the
From the
teachers. They
teachers.
just,
Okay,
they
from the
reached out to me and Rob, and they just asked, do you think that it would be possible for us to bring in someone to help support us, to just provide their level of expertise? We were
Right.
talking through who might be the best person, and she's the first person that comes to my mind when it comes to it, because she was the lead at the state level for such a long time and now has her own consulting business.
Okay, yeah, I think, I don't know, did I look up, I must have looked up her beta because it's not included here, the beta. I don't think, I must have looked it up.
Yeah,
It's impressive. I don't
yeah,
have any
she's-
problem with her at all.
yeah.
And I think the price is very good. I was just wondering how it would play out in our school district with the rest of our teachers.
That's how it's.
Okay, that's it.
To clarify, she's looking at like 3 meetings over the next, between now and June.
That's correct.
And she'll be here like a whole day or more.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, she would be here the whole day
Yeah, it's,
with those group of teachers, that small group of teachers?
yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Will we be able to know what those days are?
Yeah,
It's
we'd be
written on-
looking at March 22nd, Act 80 Day, and then the May Act 80 Day for sure. And we're working with her on that third day.
Oh, so
We
we're
were-
going to get that
Yeah,
scheduled.
we were gonna try to get her in
It's
for
on-
this next Act 80 Day, but I don't think she's gonna be able, so we're
Oh, there
looking
they
at the
are.
third day.
I'm sorry, Justin, I cut you off.
Yeah, so the next 2 Act 80 Days, one in March and then one in May, and then we're working with her on the third day.
Okay, great.
So the
Well, I
February
would be
19th is
interested.
not confirmed yet.
She's not able to do it that day.
And since it's an Act 80 day, we don't need substitutes. The cost will be $3,000.
That's correct.
I'd be interested in seeing
I'm fine with
that.
bringing it.
Yeah, we'll let you know. I'll send out the Act 80 Day schedule to everyone. You're more than welcome to attend anything that happens on those days. All
Anybody Have
right.
any issues with it or in the committee? Everybody good?
Yep. We good then?
All right, so the next one is number 6.
Is it worked on?
I'm gonna, it's up to you. I do some work with her, so there's a conflict for me to say what you should do or shouldn't do.
Oh, I wonder what you would say.
I would imagine he would say
Okay.
positive, nice things about her.
Yeah.
We work together and we continue to work together, so you can read through that as.
Well, I noticed Lynn Ann Black was on her dissertation committee.
Yeah.
When I dug up her information, I like to do my
Rob
research.
mentioned in the video that you had done some work with.
Can you blink once for yes, twice for no? Just messing. Yeah.
And I have worked with her previously. She worked with us probably about 4 or 5 years ago at some point. And she's absolutely phenomenal. Yeah.
Sounds like it.
So number 6 is, so we have a group of phenomenal science teachers at the junior high. And there are new STEELS standards that have come up. STEELS stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Environmental Literacy and Sustainability. And so those are new. Those standards will be assessed on the PSSA beginning next year as a pilot. And then the following year, it'll be for real. So our kids will be taking that test for real in two years. So they came out with the standards in the spring of last year. I've been working with our science departments to get our science teams up to date with what's happening with these new standards. Just to summarize the standards, a lot of what they're asking us to do now is much more hands-on, much more inquiry-based, and I think it's ultimately going to be good for kids. But it gets us to a point where we've got to get ourselves ready for these new standards. So our amazing, and I say that with my whole heart into it, we have an amazing group of teachers at the junior high. What they have done is they saw this coming. They saw this coming in the spring. And so what they started doing was, there is a free curriculum that's out there. They requested to pilot that program all on their own initiative. And there's 4 of them that do such a great job. And they started piloting this program. And what they found through the pilot of this program was that while it is free, there are some materials and supplies that are needed. In fact, and I didn't realize this until they told me, they were paying for some of the things out of pocket, and that's, you know, we don't want that to happen. So what the request is here is
We
that
don't discourage that.
Teachers are gonna do it, we'll do it anyway.
So what we are requesting through this is that we help support those teachers. I listed the materials and resources that they're asking for. The total amount to that with shipping would be $5,735 with shipping. So we would respectfully ask for your approval on that.
And everything is listed. They sent us everything.
They sent everything.
You said 5,735.
Yeah. And that's with a $500 shipping cost.
And this would be for 180 students. and
Like what you can do is.
for every year we gotta do this.
Click on that.
Yeah, this would be an every year cost if we would decide to go with what they're piloting.
And so if they pilot this, we would need to do it for 4 times this amount? How many?
No, this is for the entire group.
180 students.
Yeah.
And that's all we would have in this program?
And that would be, if we would decide to use this program, it is a free program, and that would be an ongoing $5,735 cost for
So
materials.
once a year.
Right.
So it'd be a recurring cost.
Right, which would be a heck of a lot cheaper than purchasing a curriculum from a vendor, which would probably charge $200,000. Yeah.
So where's it being shipped from, or how much? I mean, $500 shipping is.
Yeah, because the materials and resources are from a variety of different places. The shipping is going to be just from pretty much everywhere.
Right, because on the.
Walter was gonna say.
And the $500 shipping cost was an estimate of a cost, and it's probably not going to hit that. So this cost would be $5,735, not to exceed $5,735.
But if you click on each one of those things they want, you'll see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Well,
and there's a
just seem
variety.
to be a lot of shipping, that's all.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
coming from different.
And I estimated that at 500, it's probably going to come in lower than that.
Maybe Amazon Prime.
That's a good idea. Right?
I don't think they can.
Justin, which students get it? Like which 180 or which?
All students taking junior high science.
Oh, so it's everyone. Okay.
And 180 units will cover that group.
Yeah, it will.
Okay, because I don't want to cut it out if we need 250.
Yeah.
Why don't we make the motion for 6,000, or less than 6,000, just in case?
That sounds good.
Up to 6,000.
And we can also then put it on as a recurring expense for Jared's reports.
Sounds good.
If they do adapt it, then that recurring will really, you don't have to vote on it every time, it'll just be part of the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the next one, number 7, so this is completely related to the last one. So our science teams we've been doing a lot of good work to align our curriculum with the Steel standards. And as part of that work, we were looking at vendors who provide programs. We're just doing our due diligence and finding, what is out there that's best aligned with these new standards. And we had a couple vendors that came in, presented to us. One of as they were presenting, one of the companies was called Amplify. It's actually the same company that does CKLA. And as they were leaving, Paul McHugh, Lisa Adams, 2 of the science teachers at the junior high, said, hey, could we pilot a unit or 2 of this Amplify curriculum to see how it matches up and how it lines up with this Open SciEd, which is the free curriculum. If we decide to go the route of purchasing this Amplify, it is going to be quite a bit more expensive. However, we do want to explore to make sure that, and if it is the right thing, more importantly than money, we want to make sure that the program is the right program for us. So they have requested, and I agree with the request for them to do a pilot of a couple units of Amplify Science. The cost is $1,395 to do the pilots. That would include all materials, all supplies, all teacher manuals, everything that's included in training for the teachers to implement that. So if you are okay with that, I would like to put that on the board meeting for Monday.
And again, this is junior high.
Junior highs, yep.
Just curiosity, you probably said it or it's written somewhere. Are these national standards steals or state standards?
Yeah, so the steel standards, they are based upon the national next generation science standards. So it is a national, they are national standards that Pennsylvania has kind of redone in their own way, but very much aligned.
Okay.
Anyone have any problems with?
I'd be happy that they do that because free curriculum isn't always that great.
Right.
So.
Right, and I think what they're finding out is, I don't think they would have asked for a pilot of these new materials if they were completely happy and in love with the free materials that were out there. So I think they like it, I think it's okay, but I think they're open to exploring.
What I'd also like to put back on the radar, we talked about a while ago with the science teachers. I know when we did the tour, Sally and I were the last ones standing and had a chance.
Yeah, everybody went.
Everybody had to leave.
We went to a party and didn't invite us.
We're the only ones not working. So,
Yeah.
But they were sharing with us the size of the classrooms we were seeing and the number of students and the things that they can't always do in science because of that.
Yeah.
So I do want to put it back on the radar when you're thinking about staffing for next year. The science teachers who are teaching social studies, if they could go back to teaching science, that we could think about, hiring social studies if that's what we need.
Right, but they were not complaining, but they do have challenges with the size of their rooms, the fact that they don't have actual labs to work in some of them, lab tables. And I think, Tom, you're aware of these challenges.
Yeah, this has been a problem on the table for a while. They have fixed lab units that restrict the number of students, and I suspect that if we did some remodeling there, that we could increase our numbers by maybe 4 to 6 more students.
I don't know that we want to do that either in a lab class. I mean, it's not ideal to have 30 students in a lab class.
No, but right now they have 18.
Which is great.
Well,
18
but
nice.
the problem is the furniture is restricting. They don't teach labs the way that the way you took a lab.
Right.
Okay, they do different things and they need different materials. We don't need gas on the labs anymore. So looking at those two, I think there's 2-3 rooms that are that way.
Yes.
We can look at those rooms and see if we can make some physical adjustments that would allow more
Please.
students in the room safely.
Please, another thing they had to do, the one teacher, and I'm getting all these subjects mixed up out, which science it was, but if she uses her microscope, she has to string extension cords all over because there aren't actual outlets by the tables.
I hope they're all working though.
The microphone.
Well, I guess they're working, but it's just a safety hazard.
Yeah, there's wires everywhere.
People.
We were starting to find that all the microscopes in the junior high school at one point were not functional because they were dirty and the principal didn't have the budget to clean them. And so our kids were taking biology without.
Was that when you were in high school?
No, it was when my daughter was in high school when we were doing the gym work and all this stuff down there. The microscopes got dirty and we didn't clean them. And so the teachers adjusted the curriculum to teach biology without microscopes. Okay, so
the
that's what we're trying
point
to
is that
we need to.
the point is that if we need new microscopes or whatever to make this work, then or new wall plugs someplace to plug them in where you don't have 5 extension cords running across the floor, whatever it is.
Well, I made notes that night of everything. I didn't bring those notes along with me that the teachers were talking about. And those are the things that just come to mind to me right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that because there's actually a science curriculum meeting that's coming up on Tuesday next week. So I can get some feedback from them, just get their input and see.
Please, and you can say because we asked.
Because I didn't know
because-
that previously.
Right, they felt very comfortable telling us, I think.
Yeah.
We actually.
Yeah, and they weren't complaining.
No, they
just
weren't
telling
complaining,
us,
I didn't.
this is how it is. This is how we're doing it.
I can say that we've just been working with that group of science teachers. I'm not, and coming from director of special ed position to my position now as director of education, they're unbelievable. Like they're really it's been like just been refreshing working with them.
I can imagine what they could do if they had the resources.
This problem, we ignored it from 5 years ago. We got sucked down by COVID and everything else.
Right.
But it's time to put it back on the table.
I agree.
I want to look at remodeling those rooms as part of a capital expense, and see if we can make some improvements to that curriculum on the physical side. So I'm certainly anxious to hear what they have to say.
Tom, it'd be kind of cool doing those labs as part of a bigger project in the high school.
It would be cool.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
and one of the things that
Which
we need to be aware of is the WCCC up at the ICTC has these phenomenal labs that are just beautiful. That we might be able to co-op use of those facilities. They used to do their teaching in our building. Now they have their own labs, and they're really lovely labs.
Absolutely. No, I'm just saying, I think eventually us talking about, which is not this committee, but the some of the improvement like within the schools, high level, high school, Ben Franklin, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those are very important topics.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that we shoved to the side, and the teachers aren't complaining, but we are aware of the problem. Okay, so if we could get some discussion going, some kind of some solutions within the existing framework, that would be pretty nice.
Sounds good. All right, next one is agenda item number 8, which is our Power School upgrade. So this upgrade, a few years ago, we were doing registration. So when parents were registering students for school, they were doing it all in paper and pencil. And so what would happen with that is those paper and pencil registration forms would go into a secretary, and the secretary would take all those paper and pencil forms and type all of that information into PowerSchool, which is our student information system. Right. And over time, what we did a few years ago was we converted that to electronic process where it's good, but it's still not great. Where we're at with that is those forms come in, and then what our secretaries do is they copy and paste. So instead of looking and then doing it, and now they're copying, pasting into PowerSchool, and sometimes that promotes to it lends itself to mistakes. Sometimes that lends itself to it's just a time-consuming. If you talked with our secretaries' staff, they would ask them about the registration process and doing that. It's painstaking. So what we found was that through PowerSchool, they actually have something that's called eCollect forms. And with these collect forms, parents can fill out this information and it automatically go into PowerSchool. And then all we would have to do is look to just make sure that it's accurate, right? So not only does it allow us to do this, it takes away that time that secretaries are doing the copy and paste, which if you look at the total cost on this, it's $11,066 for the first year, and then it's a $6,800 ongoing cost. I think the $11,000 initial cost, we would be saving our time with secretaries for it. But they also we do emergency cards, and those emergency cards go in. They have a process for emergency cards. They have a process for medication, like when parents fill out medication. And so when it's done, the other thing that we always have to keep up on is if I'm a parent and my address changes, school district doesn't usually know that. So what we were thinking was, we would just send out an ongoing update that they could just complete it. You could complete it anytime. We would send out reminders, but if parents complete that on there, it automatically updates their information. Whereas now that process, it's just a complicated process.
We have a paper emergency card that has this number crossed out, this number crossed out, this number crossed out. Yeah,
that's messy.
Not very effective.
Yeah, so the emergency contacts it's rough, and it's sometimes not accurate information because there's things like that occur. So I think this would save us a lot of time, and I think it would keep us in a position where we're not making mistakes with data.
We're also in the era where when I was on softball, I would have 6 different numbers, no last names matching, with, and that's always, you know, that it's a constantly changing battle for some of these kids.
Keeping up with phone information is a
Well,
definite
and
challenge.
Multiple parents, multiple grandparents, no last names match.
Also, won't this facilitate things for the parents? Because it was,
Absolutely.
you know, they're doing something, say they have 5 kids. I don't know anybody that has 5 kids, but say they.
Say you have 6 kids.
You gotta have-
You gotta do this.
they have-
Two of us do it, right?
they have
Few of us.
parents, it's probably the mother, it fills out that thing, and this would facilitate it for parents.
Yes.
Now, do parents in our district, they all have computers, so that's not gonna be a.
You can do it from a phone, you can do
okay.
it from a phone, you can do it from a computer. You can pretty much do it from anywhere that you can access PowerSchool.
And if you don't, you certainly have a piece of paper you can fill out and transfer the last 10
Yeah,
minutes.
and if you don't have anything, yeah, you could just submit to a paper to us, because that's, I mean, the amount of time that's gonna take a secretary to put 1 in, or
Yes,
5
that's
in, or
right, that's
10 in,
great.
in comparison to 2,800.
Yes, and then the secretary will have the capability just to pull up that information like that, and, yeah, that's great.
Is it, so, by the way, this is a no-brainer, I think, so I'm very much in support of it. I thought the first year was 9,000 though.
When I looked at the quote.
You must know something about money. I don't.
I do. I got you, Sally.
Good.
Let me find out. Do you have the agenda up here?
I'll do it.
Can you look at that? What does that quote say?
The quote,
The quote says 11,066.
yeah,
Is it-
11,066 for the first year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those fees are 6,300.
Right now,
Annual.
And then annual.
Yeah, I think
Rob said that.
I
That's
think
right,
Rob
he
did
did.
say, Rob
He
did
did.
say like 9,000, but it's
Okay.
11.
That's what we
It's
got.
another advantage that, as I understand it, according to Kelly, PowerSchool translates into different languages, whereas right now your paper form, as I understand it, is only in English.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
So if your family's
Yes,
speaking
as
some
part of that-
Language, then
Yeah, that's great.
kind of solves a big issue.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So if everybody's okay with it, I will get that onto the agenda.
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody okay?
Absolutely.
All right, the next one is Administrator Out-of-State Conference. This is Kelly. So Kelly has requested to go to a conference with Anita Archer. Anita Archer is the source for literacy education. If you talk to people who know literacy education really, really well, Anita Archer is the one. Kelly, all she is asking for this conference is registration cost. She's not asking for mileage. It is in Oregon. It is out of state. So anything that's out of state gets brought to your attention for approval. I did put a link to the conference on the agenda. Kelly, do you have anything that you would like to add?
I would not miss any time with children. It's over the summer. So I just take those conference days if I need to take vacation days. I'm going back to school right now, and 2 of my professors reached out to me and said, hey, this opportunity is coming up. It hasn't been released yet, but we thought of you immediately. And so when I looked into it, it's really explicit teaching, which is what we're doing now. It's just it's systemic, and it's clear objectives, it's gradual release. So I do it, so the teacher is modeling. We do it, the teacher and the students do the instruction learning together, and then you do it. So giving the child the ability to do the activity independently. But what I'm most interested in is the active participation piece of it. And so that's when we're giving
Kelly, what was that again?
active participation, and we're giving students
Active participation.
yeah, multiple opportunities to respond. The more opportunities to respond a child has, the more effective the learning is. So it's moving away from, raising your hand and waiting to be called upon. It's opportunities through choral response. As students are reading, the teacher may be reading, the teacher stops, the students all respond. When they come to a word that they can decode. So that's really what I'm most interested in. We do data team meetings every day of the week, it seems like, and that's where I'd like to start disseminating some of the information with my staff, and then I'd be happy to work with Eisenhower and East Pike as well. It's a trainer model, so I would be able to train and work with teachers and other principals. as
How
well.
many days is the conference?
5-day conference.
5 days, so they'll get pretty deep into the weeds
Yes.
with it. Okay.
Yes,
Are you paying for the hotel and the travel?
I'll do that.
And if you wrote this in your, it was already written, I'm sorry, the massive question, but does it target a certain grade levels or is it the
It's K-6.
K through 6?
Yeah, so it's elementary.
Nice.
You can't, I shouldn't even say it's K-6 because explicit teaching and active participation is all the way through
That's true
adult
too,
learning.
yeah, but
You know?
you're doing it for the,
Yeah.
Your focus would be K through 6.
Yes.
I don't know why we didn't
That's
support it at all.
No, I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that we don't support it a little more.
I thought of that same thing. I thought maybe that could be something,
Yeah, I think that's something we should think about, maybe the
Yeah.
Budget and Finance Committee,
Because
that
did you
each
price your
administrator could
flights?
have so much conference, because it is important that you go.
Right,
So
'cause
even if
you're
we
gonna be
allotted so much
helping-
money per year
Especially,
for conference
Well,
participation.
there is money allotted for that.
For
Plus,
administration.
she's bringing it back to all of our
Mhm.
our students in elementary, the teachers.
especially Sue, one that's 5 days long, that's gonna take a really deep dive into it. That's critical.
I would move that we pay more than $1,495, and figure out some appropriate number in there. So if you take a look at the budget, does that make sense?
So that's only the conference registration.
Yes.
So you're gonna be having your hotel room, your food,
Your flight.
maybe the food will be included in the conference.
It looks like there's the continental.
Oh, yeah, that's what they would have.
Not
Are you flying?
Stuff like that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So it'll be a flight.
I can't drive.
No, wait, you can't take the train.
I
You
could
can-
take
you
the
can-
train,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I
You could leave a couple of days, maybe 3 days early.
I haven't.
And it's a beautiful trip across the northwest. Yeah, you really should take.
I'm really excited to see Portland. I lived out on the West Coast, but I've never seen Portland.
So how does this work when we say something like that? Who talks about the,
Yeah, so on the agenda item, we can put, or Kelly, I can work with you to figure out what, what other costs there are associated.
We can talk about it, but I'm really okay.
Yeah, and we understand that, Connie, but you're gonna spend 5 days, 10 hours a day doing this for us. And you come back and you're gonna train 450 teachers. Okay, so we get a lot of benefit out of it. And she's in a position where the teachers actually have to listen to her. Okay, so this is gonna work out really
That's
well
true.
for us. So I know there's a budget line item for administrator travel. Okay, for administrative, okay, and so take a look
Maybe
at
take
that.
a look at that,
and see what we
that
can
line item and
afford.
see where we are.
Okay, and work out some number and put it on the agenda.
Sounds
Great.
good.
Thank you.
If it comes out of the administrative travel, though, it wouldn't necessarily have to come to the board for approval. It'd still be covered under the budget.
But because it's out of state, we have to approve, right?
No, we have to still approve the trip, yes.
Oh,
And
but
we have
not
to- We have to approve the.
And we'll approve the amount.
Conference,
Yeah.
but for the travel time, or for the airline and so on, if it's already in the budget, you don't necessarily have to have that part of it on the agenda. You could, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, but the administration can figure that out. I love that.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll work with Kelly. We'll figure something
thank
out.
you. Great.
Thank you so much.
All right, so now we're on to non-agenda items. First one is the summer school program discussion. So just a little background, especially for the new school board members. Previously, in the past 2 years, we received ESSERS funds. ESSERS funds were for COVID relief. And we previously paid about $275,000 through ESSERS to support the summer school program.
This is summer camp.
The summer camp, yeah.
Right.
So that money is no longer available. Those ESSER funds are not there anymore. However, the IU 28 has written a grant, and they have secured 21st century funds that will allow for continued programming. But that programming is going to change. So it being operated by the IU and by the staff, their staff aren't our teachers. And so it will look a little bit different. In fact, I don't know that they will have a lot of certified teachers that are part of that program. So the idea is that what that program will look like is they're going to have activities for students. They're going to do field trips for students. They're going to take them to Mack Park Pool. They'll take them to, I think they have like 3 or 4 field trips or so. Program is, I think it would start first week school ends out, and it would end right around the 4th of July. So it's about 6, probably about 5-6 weeks there. And with that, what we will have to do without a shadow of a doubt is pay for a nurse to be a part of the program. We'll have to pay for food, and we'll have to pay for transportation because in that 21st Century Grant, none of those 3 things are included. So the 21st Century Grant will pay for all of the programming for the students and all the activities and all the field trips, but it will not pay for food, transportation, and nurse. So those things, I don't think there's, we don't have much of a question for. We're going to have to provide those for that program. What we do have to consider is, is there anything else we should be considering? Is there anything else that we should be looking into? Those ESSER funds are just simply not there. Now, if it's up to the board and the board decides, we would like to contribute X amount of money towards it to have our own teachers or whatever, that's up to the school board.
I think, go ahead.
Well, so when we did it as initially, it was wide open to every student. But with this grant, it's not going to be open to every student. Is that correct?
Yeah. So with their program, they are allowed to have up to 280 students to be a part of the program. That was right around where we were last summer. Almost exactly the same number as it was last summer.
And these are our students, not countywide students.
These are our students, yes. So it was at 280. So what my proposal with that would be is if they cut it off in 280, or if our registration gets close to that mark, we come back to the board and say, hey, we're at 260. If we get 20 more students, we're going to have to make a decision to open up maybe a portion of a program. If the decision is to be, we don't want to turn anyone away.
And so the next question is, we started the summer camp to help make up the learning loss and to supplement the academics to the students.
Right.
For what grades?
It would be for, so their program, the 21st Century program, would be K through, students that are going into first grade. So they are not accepting like pre-K into kindergarten. Mm-hmm. So it would be 1st through 8th.
Okay, but you talked about field trips and activities and so on like that. I didn't hear anything about the academic portion of it. Is it going to be significantly different than what?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will be. Reason being is it's not
good or bad.
I don't think it will be as good as it was previously because it won't be our teachers, our certified teachers that are teaching in the program. They did put into their grant that they will be providing academics. Very likely, the academics that will be provided as part of this program will be done by, maybe college students that are working towards a teaching certificate, or college students, or whoever they decide to hire. But it'll very likely not be certified teachers.
I mean, currently, like the after-school program, they have some lead staff, and then they have other staff that we hire through Aaron and through the foundation. Because I'm on the foundation board also that wrote this 21st Century. That worked with this grant. So we're actually doing fundraising right now. Thank you, Sally. You did donate. You were only one of 4 that on our
I didn't even, okay.
on our GoFundMe page. You donated.
Oh, that's right. I remember now.
So we're trying to get money to help offset the cost for the food.
Yeah.
At least, and some of the other things that they need, because we don't have enough at the foundation even to cover some of these things that we'd like to try to cover that the grant doesn't cover. The grant covers a fair amount, but it doesn't cover the food, the transportation.
Yeah, and we don't have to.
So we're trying to raise money for that.
So Sue, where I'm going with this is, we spent $275,000. Obviously, it didn't come out of the local taxpayers' pocket, but it was still taxpayers' dollars that we could have spent doing other things. The thing that attracted me, and I'm pretty sure Tom and most everybody else when we started this, was the fact that it was really there to support the students that were struggling, that had the learning loss, and that it was there for that academic value. And yes, the field trips made it fun for them to come, but the real purpose was about the academics. And so my question is, even if they're not certified teachers, are they still going to get that same academic benefit to?
Not at the level.
I don't, yeah.
But I think, from watching Rob's video, he was saying how in the camps before, we've accepted students, not just the students who were struggling or striving learners,
Yeah.
but all students.
Yeah.
So my recommendation would be that we would put some money in for the students who are struggling. That anybody that gets into the 21st century, that's fine, that's great. But I think we should support a summer camp for at least some students who need the extra support.
Can we pay for academic teachers out of a different pocket that would be part of this camp? Where we offer more intense academic classes taught by certified teachers as part of this camp that we pay out of Walter's back pocket.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
I'm sure that we could figure it.
I'm really committed to this camp in that what we found was the kids that took both semesters of this camp didn't have any summer backslide. And this was during COVID, that we had tremendous fear that we're going to lose a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids that were tested in that program didn't have summer learning loss.
Nice.
And so it seemed like a really, really good buy.
Yeah.
And we were able to use not our money, but maybe we could supplement the 21st century with some of our money to keep the academics a little more sharp.
Yeah, and one thought to that might be, hiring maybe a couple teachers that could oversee the academics that are happening in the summer program.
I'm anxious for you to bring back the recommendation.
I have a couple
Tom, the issue is if it's going to be a $20,000 or $40,000 bill to the district, no problem. If it's going to be a $250,000 bill,
Well, for
then Julia, we're going to have to get Julia convinced to go along with that one.
Yeah, and then we have to figure out how to fund it. But
I don't think we'll need that.
But for $250, we did the whole program.
Right.
So maybe for $50, we do the same academics. We let them take care of the bulk kids and then the field trips.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah. And Sally's going to raise money on the food stuff, so we don't have to worry about that.
Just don't ask me to cook it, but okay. I have a couple questions on this. Was the 21st Century Grant, this one specifically written just for Indiana School District? No other school has?
There are other schools that have the 21st century grants that work with the intermediate unit.
But they won't be in with our students?
No, they'll have their own at their own sites.
So this is 280 Indiana students would be allowed to attend, and it'll happen in our district buildings.
Right. Okay, a couple things too. Will this be called Indiana Area School District Camp? Or is it Aaron Camp?
I don't know the way that it's going to be worded.
Because the thing is that people will think they're going, they know what they had last year. So somehow we need to specify it won't be the same.
That it is going to be.
I don't want them, to be disappointed or whatever.
I'm sure whatever you send out would be explanatory.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll look into the idea of, what does it cost, how much would it cost per teacher, and then we can decide, if we added 2 teachers, we added 5 teachers, we added 7 or 8 teachers, this is what it would look like cost-wise. So even if we had a few teachers that were overseeing the work that was done by the 21st century staff, I think I would feel a little more, I agree, I think I would feel a little more comfortable with that.
Right. And will you find out the cost too of the nurse food transportation? Can you estimate that cost?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a school nurse, that's not an RN.
I believe that we are able to use an RN for summer programming.
Okay, that's a significant difference in cost.
Yes.
The RN's an hourly wage type thing, and the school nurse is a full teacher.
Oh, I know. Is this a full day camp? I think Rob told us, but I can't remember.
It's going to be
It's
a
only
half day.
That's what it was last year?
Yeah.
Justin, how long have they been doing it for? Was it something that came out of COVID?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
It started maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
It was interesting because it's something we've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the ESSERS money made it possible to roll the dice and see people it off.
Yeah.
And these guys put it together and made
It's-
a miracle out of it.
I know my daughter Athena did it last year, so she was in it. She loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I go for the fun over the academics.
That's a heck of a note from a.
And honestly, though, I think you're right, because I think what gets kids coming to a summer program is it has to be fun. It has to be social. It has to-
Because it's called camp. It's not called summer school.
Right.
It's a camp.
It's fun. It's good for a blend.
But we can
Right.
sneak in some,
Oh, definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
I understand, Sally, the need to have the fun.
Right.
I'm not disputing that, but the whole gist of why we're gonna let them have the fun is so that we can do that academic stuff to keep them from either having the learning loss or supplement what they didn't get the last 2 semesters.
True. But the grant would have guidelines on that type of thing, whatever is in that grant.
Yeah. So I'll bring back, just cost per teachers. I'll get a cost on what it would take for nurse, transportation, and food. That one's pretty much a non-negotiable. We don't have much of a
We don't
choice
have
but
any,
to
right.
provide that. But then the choice we'll have is how many teachers, if any, do we want to include as part of the summer program?
Right.
Yep. Okay.
I was just wondering if we could get a link to the GoFundMe page, maybe we could put that in our newsletters.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
good
Rob
idea.
did send it out a while ago.
No, Sue, are you
Remember?
on
He
the
did.
Aaron Foundation? Is that what you mean? What foundation are you on?
It's called the Excellence Foundation.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, I do remember. I just don't.
Yeah, we can get, it's on
Oh, and-
GoFundMe. It's actually listed as the Aaron Excellence Foundation.
That's right, yeah.
It's
You
a-
can put that on the agenda too, in that link, and so when.
Yeah, we
when the
didn't
press
do
is here
too
at the
well.
Board meeting.
Yeah.
I think we only got like $200 or something.
Wonder if
That's
we-
all you want.
Yeah, and we have a fundraiser coming up. I'll give you the date on that. It's April. I'll double check that, but we're going
Okay.
to, at the Eagles, we're going to have a fundraiser event.
I'm
Wonder if
sorry,
we-
Dr. Reed. What was the name of that again?
It's the Aaron, let me find it. It's on my Facebook
She
page.
shared on her Facebook page.
I must have. I'll have to look for.
Are you friends with her?
I don't know. I'll have to look.
All right, it's the Aaron Excellence Foundation
She'd want to.
She blocked me.
fundraising campaign.
Okay.
So could we, at the board meeting, could we get the fellow board members to share it on their Facebook page? And then also ask, like
Yeah,
Kelly
Rob
just
had sent it
recommended.
out, but it was to the old board, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe we could do that again.
Outreach.
Yeah. And I wonder if we could get the teachers too, to do it.
To
Some of
share.
To share,
Sure, absolutely.
right? I think the more that you,
You know
hit
how to
social
raise
media.
money. We know that.
yeah, we could, I
And
think
it
raise,
does talk about the after-school program and STEAM enrichment activities. And while the program relies on grant money, there are gaps in funding to adequately meet the needs of the program. So we're asking for monetary donations. So that was our first fundraiser. And right now we have,
Besides, if you need us to do ridiculous things, some of us will do ridiculous things.
Some of us.
Kelly will do ridiculous. All right, Tara, you are up with number 2 on the agenda.
Does everybody have the outside placement cost analysis? I
Yes.
believe I put one on each.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yes.
Dr. Reed previously asked me to bring back and do a deeper dive into our emotional support placements. And first, I just think I want to explain the different levels of supports in special education. So there's 3 levels of support. And you can think of it similar to the MTSS framework, the triangle that we showed you previously. The bottom being itinerant support. So that's for students receiving support from special ed personnel or services, 20% or less a day. The next tier would be supplemental, and that's for students that are receiving support 20%, more than 20%, but less than 80%. And lastly, we have full-time support, which is 80% or more of the school day. And the reason I bring that up is because when we're talking about placements, these kids are placed at the full-time support level. They're completely excluded. They're in a separate setting. So I looked at our numbers, and these numbers are based on our 2022-2023 Act 16 report. And the total cost for placements for 7 students was $258,000. The placement locations included New Story, Adelphi, and Presley Ridge. So I broke down what it would cost us as a district to open our own placement, and I was able to break it down into 2 classrooms. First classroom would be 1 student and 1 teacher, $130,000 approximately. Classroom 2 would be 6th through 12th grade for 6 students, and that would require a teacher and 2 paras. Total estimate would be $368,000. I said that was a minimum because I didn't include the cost of a mental health worker or a BCBA potentially. And as well, there's potential cost with due process if we were to bring some of these students back. Parents might not like that idea. So there's
The students, the New Story, the Adelphi, and Presley Ridge, they're full-time, right?
Full-time.
They're not like the ones you have up here, like itinerant less than 20%.
Yeah.
Do we have students that would potentially be in these classes for part of a day? Like some of these students that we're hearing about that have the severe emotional issues, can they spend some time in a classroom and some time in an emotional support classroom?
So most of our students that are emotional support students in district not placed right now are at the itinerant level. So they receive supports for 20% or less in a school day.
And is there an
And we're-
emotional
We're
support
supporting those
teacher?
kids now.
What's that?
We're supporting those kids now.
We are supporting those kids now.
With
Not the 7 students. These are the kids that I estimated the cost of the outside placements on.
The
Who's
outside
supporting
placement
them?
is the 7 students.
What's that?
The outside placement is the 7 students.
Correct.
And that's what you're doing with the classroom 1 and 2.
Yes.
Okay.
If we were to
That
bring
would be
those students
full-time.
back.
Yeah, full-time.
The other, the itinerant and the supplemental, that's all on us already.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not bringing any of those kids back.
They're already
They're
here.
already here.
Okay.
Tara, how many could we fit like in each classroom?
So the caseload range it's based on which level of support they're receiving. I believe
Goes
the
up to 12.
12, I believe it's 12
Up to
for
12,
emotional
okay.
support full-time.
So who's supporting them now? Is it an
Learning
emotional
support teachers?
Learning support, not emotional support.
Correct. But learning support teachers can provide emotional
Right,
support.
I mean, they have that background, but they also have their own caseload of learning support students, which is probably fairly.
How many kids are in the first 2 categories? We just pulled the estimate.
Yeah. I have it here. 29 total students. And that's K-12.
That's itinerant and supplemental,
Yeah.
28.
I believe there's only like 4 supplemental, the rest are
Yeah,
itinerant.
because what does supplemental look like if they're, because it's 20 to 80%, right? Well, 20 to 79% technically.
You're right, yeah.
So they're not in a classroom. That means your emotional support teacher is visiting with them quite a bit, or behavior specialist, counselor, school psych, or whatever, right?
Correct. And some of those students might have academic
Sure.
needs as well, so they're pushing into classrooms, pulling out for interventions.
Yeah, so those costs are already being paid for by the district because those are employees that are otherwise responsible for other things, right? So you're supporting the school district is supporting a small number of students at supplemental level, but it's not just the emotional support teacher, it's other staff who are already on the payroll, right?
Correct.
Yeah, learning support.
Yeah, our learning support teachers may have
Sure.
4 emotional support students, but a student that's at the itinerant level for emotional support, they don't need an intensive amount of support. They're not pulled out because they're having major issues typically.
And I remember a few years ago when we hired Lee Manning, the intention was for him to be emotional support, designated just for emotional support. What we found while he was doing that was there were a few students that were placed into his classroom that were supplemental receiving emotional support within his classroom. And Lee came back to me and said, Justin, these kids can get out into regular education if I can just be out there and help and support them. And so that's what we did. And that's kind of where, it's kind of where it was. So what's kind of happened over the time is we haven't really had the need for a classroom. We've had the need for the teacher, like supporting students. But I think what the teachers were, at least Lee at that time was saying, I can support these kids out in the regular education classroom. And the moment he said that, I'm like, well, if they can be out there, they're going to get them out there.
That's part of the least restrictive environment that they want to be in.
And so we tried it, and it wasn't like it turned into it's him, helping support students, with behavior plans and with, we do some intervention groups with students, but not necessarily it's that they're in there for, the course of a day. It's a challenge.
But we're not only talking about employee costs, we also have capital costs. You can't take a regular classroom and dump these kids into it, from what I understand. Is that not?
Well, what are you
At
saying?
the
Is they can
itinerant
go in-
supplemental level,
Right.
they can
go in
participate in gen
part-time.
ed.
But it's nice if the teacher can push in with them.
No, I'm talking about the 7 placement kids.
Oh, the 7.
No, those kids are full-time and we cannot support them here
At this point.
at this
Okay,
point.
but if we hire these 4 people, you say we could.
We could,
Okay, but I'm
as long as
saying,
parents are in agreement to bring them back.
Right, but we wouldn't have to, for the future, what I'm saying is we wouldn't have to send kids out of the district. We would have an improvement. I understand if parents whose kids are already there are happy there and they want to keep their kids
Right,
there,
absolutely.
that's all well and good. But it would be nice to have a place in the district.
Moving forward, we wouldn't have to place students.
Right, we wouldn't have to send them out.
okay, but we
For
would have
those
capital
children.
costs in those classrooms,
Well, yeah,
right? I mean, we
we're either
can't-
paying it to them, the 258,000
Well,
to them.
we're paying 258 to them, we're going to pay 368 to us plus capital expenses to convert some classrooms to these.
Correct.
To a specialized classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you add students to these classrooms, these are kids with very intense needs. We're gonna have to also add paras. So there's more than just the 360.
And I think the other cost that's not necessarily in here is also until we have an actual, like an actual space. Because what I would, with the students that are out inside placements, a lot of them are in placements because of weapons or drugs or serious bodily injury. We wouldn't necessarily want to house that outside placement within one of our buildings. So that would almost require a separate setting as well.
So.
Ideally.
You see what I'm saying?
We could use the house up on 9th Street.
Yeah.
Well, as I understand it, we've had trouble finding slots to place some of these students in.
There's a wait list with everything.
So from my perspective as a board member, that's more the issue that I'm concerned with is if there are lots of slots out there, then it's obviously cheaper to have somebody else do this than it is, because it's like $37,000 a student based on your 258 figure, Tara.
Mhm.
But if if there are no slots available, then we're in a catch-22. So that's the biggest concern that I have is if there aren't the slots, then is there a way for us to create our own slots? And then the follow-up question to that is, looking at it from a marketing point of view or an economic point of view, if there aren't slots out there for us, I've got to assume that there are not slots out there for everybody else.
Yeah.
So if you were to, and again, if you could put 12 people in the classroom or whatever that number is, and we've got 7, then is that something where we take it to the next level and say, okay, to help reduce our costs, we'll open it up for other students?
But we're not going to reduce our costs.
Well,
because we're using teachers at 130,000, and News Story is using teachers at 35,000.
No, but if you're charging,
You're saying charge tuition for other districts to be
Correct.
placed here.
But in order to cover our costs, we would have to charge more tuition than News Story does. If we're going to cover our costs, or if we're going to do it as a social engagement, then we're going to lose money on this proposition.
It ranges, they have different tiers,
It's usually
up to
about
60,000.
Yeah.
Claire, what's the ability, do you think, for us to get students from other school districts?
It's there for sure. Easily.
Absolutely, yeah.
because they're in the same boat, Chris. They can't place their students because they're waiting on the same slots we're waiting on.
And we have to educate. It's not like we can say,
Yeah.
you can stay home.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a decision for right now, just because we don't have that setting. Like, there's not that, maybe that's different after a 780 hearing, who knows? But, we don't have that place because within any one of our buildings, it really, the outside setting couldn't happen.
So we couldn't take a room in the junior high school and make that this outplacement. We need a separate
You
location.
could, it wouldn't be ideal.
Okay, well, and there's no reason to start off in the hole.
Right.
So we'll go ideal until we can.
Dr. Runge.
So there's another advantage that not only put price tag on it, to having the district run its own full-time emotional support classrooms, and that is the opportunity in the transition planning from the placement back into the gen ed setting, or at least down to supplement or itinerant level support, is far easier when the program is run by the school district. I don't know exactly how the arrangement is with Crestwood Ridge, New Story, or Adelphi, but my experience with placements is they're running their own curriculum.
Absolutely.
And then when the kid comes back, they were doing something completely different in all of their subject areas. And now they're being thrust back into their neighborhood school where they're being expected to master content for which they didn't have they likely didn't have any of the exposure while they were placed outside of the district. Whereas when a district is running its own full-time emotional support classroom, you get to own what the curriculum is academically speaking, and it should be consistent with what the kids would be receiving had they not been in placement. And I don't know if you can put a value, like a price tag on that, but it's easier transition-wise back into less restrictive settings for students.
Yeah, a good point, Aaron. Aaron just said you could also kids could go back and forth.
Like, if we think they're ready to go out, we think they're ready to go, we think they're ready, we go try it for a couple weeks, it's not working, so we can go back very much easier. We haven't lost our spot, we haven't lost.
Or go back to like a supplemental.
Right,
But
exactly.
the kid's doing really well in this particular
Right,
setting, not so
Start
much in
pushing
this
them out a
one.
little bit at a time.
Right,
Yeah.
so they could slowly wean back into the
Right.
system where they can't
Right.
do that if they just come
Right.
back from
Right. And, yeah, 'cause you lose
On the back of your sheet, I just added some points for consideration. We just talked about a couple of those. So placement options would be we open our own classroom or our own placement, operated by us. And another thought was opening our own placement, but operated by an outside agency.
Can you try that by again?
An outside agency
Like
supported.
who
So
might do that?
What's that?
What's an agency?
Meraki is an agency that would be involved. So they would take care of the staffing issues. I do foresee if we opened our own placement, the staffing would be a problem. I worked at News Story for a couple of years. It's definitely a hard job, and payroll turnover rate is bad enough.
But they don't pay well either. I mean,
News
a
Story?
teacher to come here would get a higher pay.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh,
That might
absolutely.
be
Yeah.
more willing to come here.
But it's still a tough job.
It's a very tough
Oh,
job.
it's, I couldn't do it.
So if you get an outside agency involved, they could take care of providing the staff.
When you say that, do you mean we would house it here in our
We could
district?
house it here.
and We'd use an outside agency.
Yeah, so we wouldn't benefit in any capacity other than rent. They would pay us like a rental fee.
Would the teachers allow that?
I think in-house. I don't foresee that being a good solution if it's in-house in one of our buildings because, especially if it's, an offense like serious bodily injury or what, student brings in a weapon, those students have to be in an outside place.
I understand. Okay, we're gonna put them somewhere else.
Pretend they're in another building.
But in another location. And will we run into any trouble with our teachers union in employing outside bodies to teach these kids?
We would have to have the conversations with them ahead of time, just to, to just see what their take is on it. I don't know. I don't think that there's, I don't know. I think we'd have to have the conversations with them though.
And that's gonna be part of the decision-making process.
Absolutely.
But if we did that, Sue, Rick, if we did that, say we did the in-house thing and had some agency run it, what would be the advantage over sending them to one of these locations they're already going to? Because that wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know if they're really.
Yeah.
You still could
I
control.
mean, you could still, the transition might be, if we had say over that, but I don't know how much, it would depend on the agency to say how much they control and how much we could potentially control.
Right.
So, and financially, we're looking at saving $250,000, but spending $500,000. I'm making up numbers here,
Right.
but we're not gonna do this at less money than News Story can.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, no. we could encourage New Story to expand.
We could, and it makes sense for them to expand, because, you know, the more students they have, the more money they make. So it does, it makes sense for them to expand.
And the 780 hearing might be one of those discussion points.
Yeah.
The other two options were just classroom options, so not placement options. And that would be to support our students' current needs that are here in district. And that would be to repurpose our current district staff. I could look at ways to find ways to support those kiddos, specifically emotional support kiddos, and then to host an Aaron emotional support classroom. The downfall to us repurposing our current district staff would be possibly some of our academic needs wouldn't be supported like they are now.
I don't think,
Right.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think they have enough to do, the learning support, the life skills teachers. I don't.
Yeah, we'd have to
Yeah.
hire. We don't have any Aaron-run classrooms now in our district.
We do.
We do, because I know Homer City does.
Two autistic support classrooms that are run by Aaron.
One at the junior high, one at the senior high.
Okay.
Who are the teachers that hired through Aaron?
Yeah.
For those classrooms who are?
And are they Aaron's
Yeah,
teachers?
they are teachers that are hired through Aaron.
Right, but their salaries are comparable. They take all those.
Right.
We have on the plans the autism classroom scheduled for Eisenhower, with Aaron also run that classroom.
Something else we have to take into consideration, I'm not
They
being
could, yeah.
a naysayer, please know that, but there's 7 students now that we're talking about, but that would change from year to year. So we would have to accommodate, I mean, that's something we have to take into consideration.
Yeah.
I'm quite frankly surprised it's only 7 students out of 20. That's really.
I agree.
And
That's really-
But are there other
I
students
I
who
know.
might need that placement that don't have it now?
Yeah.
Look at the principals.
Yeah,
Exactly. I mean,
Okay, so they might need it,
I mean,
and
what,
they're not there because parents wouldn't agree, or?
Well, I mean,
There's no outside placements that,
there's wait lists, like they said, there's no space, some of them.
So-
There's no place to.
So, I mean,
I see.
when was that, Aaron? A couple of years ago when you told us here at a meeting that the child sat in your office for how many days? Because there wasn't an appropriate placement, the child couldn't be in the classroom. I mean, now if that happens, when Aaron's supposed to be at Eisenhower and Horace Mann, she can't be sitting at Eisenhower with a student with severe emotional needs in her
Both of
office.
these guys.
Yeah, I'm sure. But you were the one that mentioned it a year or so ago, I
That's
think,
a-
at a meeting that.
It was when I was first started Eisenhower, we had that.
So
Yeah.
if it's 7 now, should it be 15? I'm asking.
So the
Well,
other
they have
thing
to be
that,
identified, I mean, they have to go through the whole process.
Yeah, but is there, are we only properly serving half of that population?
let me complicate matters a little bit more further.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, that's.
So in order for a student to be placed in an outside placement, one of 3 things has to happen, right? So it has to be weapons, drugs, or serious bodily injury, right? So that's the only time we can,
Not the threat of bodily injury, but
No, not
actual body.
actual-
Somebody actually has to get hurt.
so those, and that's,
not just
Yeah.
serious, and get seriously hurt. Like, it can't be just like, broken collarbone or something like
Whoa,
that.
broken collarbone doesn't count.
Yeah, or Don, I'm sure remember several years ago when the teacher got stabbed with a pencil, that was not considered serious bodily injury, but the teacher had a stab wound in her arm from the kid.
and these are not Zohorchak's rules.
No, no, no,
These-
no, no,
this-
no,
This is,
no, no,
yeah.
no.
So the law says that, so what, here's how outside placements happen. So one of those 3 things happens, we can mandate with the family that, this student has to go to an outside placement. If one of those 3 things doesn't happen, we have to get the parent to agree to it. And sometimes the parent agrees to it, sometimes they don't. And we can take a parent to due process if we have sufficient data that shows, but then you're talking lawyers' fees, going to due process fees to prepare the books for due process is about $11,000 per. And so that brings me to my next point with the just the cost. So there's 7 students that are out there right now. I can guarantee you, if we would attempt to bring back all 7 students from these outside placements to quote unquote our outside placement, I would bet that we would go to due process 6 times.
Wow.
Because if the parent disagrees with that placement option,
Yeah.
they can
Yeah.
file for due process at any time.
And that's why I said I wouldn't
Right.
suggest bringing them back now unless the
Right.
parents said yes.
So-
But for future
Right.
kids that have issues, it would be nice to have a place.
So you might actually get like 2 out of those 7 that actually come back.
No.
So I know I just complicated it further, but I just kind of wanted to explain that so everyone has the same understanding.
Are any of the 28 that are receiving supplemental, should they be receiving more? Or is that pretty accurate? They're
It's
pretty
accurate.
good where they are.
And the 28, the 29, it's supplemental and itinerant.
And they're appropriately placed right now.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think this is something like we need to have like ongoing conversation about, and I don't think there's anything that we're really gonna decide here today. I mean, I don't know
No,
if
it's
it's,
just good to have the information.
Yeah.
It's helpful to know
This is
what.
really good.
Tara, you're up again.
Oh,
Goody.
Terry, one more thing, with the three, I know what New Story is, I know what Adolphi is what's Presley Ridge, where is that?
They have a location in Greensburg and I believe it's Johnstown.
Johnstown.
They have a dozen locations.
But the students come home, they don't, okay.
They don't stay, it's not
Do we
residential.
provide this transportation there, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, which again, you're transporting a kid with emotional problems 45 minutes, both ways.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
Yeah, which seems like a really hard thing to do.
It is.
I also want to add with emotional support outside placements, you're taking a kid that has problems and we're putting them in a classroom with 10 other kids that have problems. So we do try to exhaust all efforts to keep them here first because it's not necessarily better. They may go there and learn more behaviors, which we've seen very often.
That's also an hour and a half each day that they're not getting instruction.
True,
Yeah.
that's true.
And is there a paraeducator in that bus?
No.
So it's just
Just the driver.
It's just a single van driver driving?
And is that our transportation company that we use?
It is. And we typically share costs, like we share costs for those transportation with Blairsville and River Valley and I think Homer Center has some students that are there, Marion Center has students that are there, so we do share costs with the other districts.
I wouldn't want to be that driver.
Any other questions on that?
No, thank you, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we have TSI. The high school was flagged for TSI, which is Targeted Support and Improvement. There's 3 tiers of support that is flagged. CSI is Comprehensive Support and Improvement. That's the highest level of support that's needed. ATSI is Additional Targeted Support and Improvement. And then there's TSI. So we were flagged for the lowest level of support. The data that was used was from 2021 to 2022, so it's old data. And since then, we've already made improvement in the areas of concern. It was specific for special education and growth and achievement in math and ELA and our graduation rate. The plan is due September 1st of 2024. And Wade and I have been working with teachers and Susan Griffith and Michelle Jordan. So we're creating a comprehensive team and we'll be putting a plan together to bring back to you.
How do we get to be 90th high school and still, by US News and World Report, we're the top 15% in the state and 2,000 out of 18,000 in the nation, and yet we're improvement.
We were on a meet for this.
Sorry?
We were on a meet for this improvement plan and there was 700 other people participating in the Google Meet. I don't know of a local district that wasn't flagged.
And they also, what they look at is they look at the rate of improvement for special education in comparison to the regular education population.
Was it specifically special education that was down?
Yes.
Yes. Was that down?
Yeah, there was, and that's what got us flagged for the need for improvement. But I do think that the team that they put together is pretty solid. I think they'll put a good plan together. This, if you remember, this did happen also, I believe it was 4 years ago. It was my first year as director of special education. It was the same exact thing. We put a plan together. The state saw our plan, they liked our plan, and then the next year we made some improvements and we were no longer on the plan.
I think it's an opportunity to get better. It's not, I mean.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
It's odd. I mean, I would like to congratulate the high school for making the list.
Yeah.
And I, one of the things that amazes me is that 50% free and reduced lunch. I bet there's nobody ahead of us on that list that has our economic
Stats.
conditions. I'll bet there's a whole bunch of private institutions on that list in the 200 schools that are ahead of us.
Tara, what I missed, I stepped out for 1 second. TSI designation. Did you guys, what is that? Can you talk a little bit more?
Yeah, so it was a targeted support and improvement. The high school was flagged for it, and the area is specific to special education for growth and achievement in math and ELA and our graduation rate. There's 3 levels of support, and we received, it's the lowest level of support that we're being flagged for.
The least, when you say lowest.
Yes, the least.
Not the most
Correct.
desperate.
Yes, we're not the most desperate.
What do you think's driving that?
Keystone exams, graduation rate,
Test scores.
Yeah,
Yes.
Keystone exams.
Yep.
Graduation rate are the 3 areas.
Of that group.
Growth and achievement for special
Keystone.
education students. As Tara had mentioned, this is data derived from 21, 22 performance. And that was right in the middle of COVID.
Yes.
And working with Wes, we've already seen improvements, especially in the graduation rate.
Yeah, graduation rate went from 77.78% to 2022-2023 is 82.5%. So there's definitely improvement. And we also talked about graduation rate. It's impacted by the fact that we have students staying in high school until age 22.
True.
I mean, that's
What-
going to be an impact every single year.
What ends up happening is the state measures are according to a 4-year cohort, grades 9 through 12.
Hmm.
And want to play the game, you just graduate them, give them their paper, keep them. However, we see there's more benefit in educating the child through years 19, 20, 21, 22 if need be.
Mhm.
However, we get dinged on that. And we're willing to take that ding because we think it's
We
better
have
for the kid.
to keep kids to the
Educate them.
Right.
to the 22nd birthday now. Not their 21st birthday, but
By a lot.
the day after the 22nd birthday, we throw them out.
Oh.
Strange.
We haven't thrown anybody out yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Yeah.
But they added a year to us.
Just doing what's
With
right,
no-
right?
With no funds, no additional funds.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for me?
All right, the last thing, Rob wanted to put this on here just to give the opportunity. We did the tour to Ideal in the senior high. Just an opportunity, chance for everyone to debrief because I believe he said that there were some discussion points that he wanted to address.
Well, I just thought, we did the tour. Now, what do we need to talk about the next step? I don't know. I can give my opinion. I thought that I see nothing wrong with our Ideal Lab. I thought it was great. But, the problem still goes back to the students that are not using our online method and they're doing, outside and it's costing us money and the students are not performing well. Their test scores are terrible and we're paying a lot of money for, I don't know that the parents are aware of how poorly educated their children are being. So that was the thing we wanted to see, because I want to take it further, but Rob thought the best idea was to see what we have here. And I asked Doug, one of the things I asked was if tomorrow we had to educate all those students that are off on these other platforms, do we have the capabilities? And his answer was yes.
So Sally, I think if you're going to, attack may not be the right word, but if you're going to try to bring the people back that are in these other outside cyber charter schools, I think the first question that we have to ask is, why did they choose to go there in the first place? What was it, something that we failed? Is it an expectation that we didn't meet? Was there an interpersonal relationship between the student, the parent, the principal, the teacher? why did they actually go there in the first place? And I think if you look at it from that perspective, then that drives the conversation of how do we get them back,
That's good. I like that.
okay?
Do we do that? Do we find out why they leave?
Yeah, how would we go about that?
Or do we already?
Because it's my understanding that a lot of them leave more for interpersonal reasons than they do for superior academics. If it's about academics, it's a different argument than if it's interpersonal.
Right, right. So you think that they left because they might have had a spat, or they just don't get along well with the teachers or the other students? Is that what you mean?
I don't know that all of them do that. I don't want to
Okay.
mislead that.
Right, right.
But I think there's a significant number that leave for that reason. At least that's been my understanding.
But the question isn't them going to cyber school. It's this question of why they're not going to our cyber school.
Correct.
Okay,
I think,
And that's what
I think
he's saying.
part of that though is
That's a critical question.
that
Yes, it is.
there's some accountability as part of our cyber school that there's not seen in some of the other cyber schools. So if you want to go and hide at PA Cyber and not do any work and nobody call you and knock on your door and that sort of thing, you can get away with that. At our cyber school, we have people that are, if you're not doing any work, we're on top of you. And we're saying now, because you didn't do your work, now you have to come into the Ideal Lab to have that work accomplished. And so that's a struggle. And I think that's a portion of it. I think there's a portion of it where there's families that just say, well, we didn't like that teacher and now we hate Indiana School District. Or we didn't like that principal, or we didn't like that director of ed, or we didn't like something that was happening there and we won't have anything to do with that school district anymore. So I think there's that. I think there's the families that really just want to find a good hiding spot. And then, I'm sure there's probably some out there doing it for good reason too.
Right. Yes, I agree with everything you said, 100%. And when you say accountability, our school makes sure that students aren't cutting and pasting answers on a regular basis, that type of thing. You're not learning anything if you're cutting and pasting answers into a test that, and they look at those types of things. Go ahead, Doug.
I was just gonna say, one of the things that's a struggle is a lot of times when a student's gonna go to an outside placement, they've already have the process in motion. The request for records comes in and then they transfer to that school and there's not a ton of opportunity there. This is anecdotal, but just as I was actually talking to a parent who had indicated they were considering that to me the other day, and something that they had said, it was kind of an interesting conversation because it kind of goes to what Walter was talking about understanding where they're coming from. And I know that we have the electives and you can go through our process, but there's probably an opportunity to expand some of the electives that we have to give more opportunities for kids to take different type of classes. And that's something to consider, but they cited that as one of the things that they wanted to go to an outside cyber for as opposed to ours. And I'd given them that, and I said, I understand that that's something that we're working towards. But something I said that kind of brought it back the other way is that the opportunity, and maybe those kids have opportunities to take different classes that we might not necessarily offer, but they don't have the opportunity to come into building to take classes to work, because we have kids that come in for 1 or 2 periods or more or less, whatever that may be. But and that parent really left that conversation understanding, oh wow, that's really maybe something we got to give a second look to.
Right.
But it's difficult to follow up with them when they leave necessarily because they're gone by the time that they leave. They don't have to necessarily announce to us ahead of time that they're going to do that to give us that opportunity to sell them back. But
That's
I
too
know
bad.
that,
I don't even know if we would get the true answer if we asked them. I have no clue if we would or not, but.
And I know that we have had various campaigns through our teaching staff. I know Rob Stewart was one. Doug was another that was calling families and saying, hey, what can we do to get you back? What can we do to get you into our cyber program? What can we do to get you back in the physical school? And we had some pretty decent success with that, but what was your success rate there?
it was low, but I know he had a handful, probably less than a handful, but it was 3 or 4 kids that had came back into the district because of the work that he was doing and tried to sell the things that we're doing.
Right.
I think your points about a place to hide is fair. But it's, I don't know what it looks like, but I do know that it would be.
The
And we've had
To keep those kids in our own.
We've had the conversation too, and you know, there's a temptation to be like them and let people hide, but we can't. We won't ever do that.
Right,
You know, we won't ever become the place that lets people hide in a cyber school.
right.
That's a
But the
good point, too,
flexibility-
Because when kids request to go to cyber, like, we look at what's going on and we consider it as a last option, but sometimes we say, I can't recommend that you go to cyber based off of the things that, for whatever reason.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that kid, you know, if they want to go to cyber, they're going to go to cyber.
True.
And those are the ones, honestly. And if you guys want us to handle it differently, those are the ones we let go.
Oh, yeah.
Wade,
Yeah, what Doug is saying is very true. And what is so disheartening, a couple of things, is you'll get a student return from one of the cyber schools. We'll be sitting with them in the guidance office. So how many credits have you earned?
Yeah, I know.
And what communications do they have with you? Now, they don't know it, but, you know, our per pupil costs, I guess, around $17,000. It's one thing if they're going there because that's a different way of being educated and works for them. But they are not getting $17,000 worth of education.
Oh, my heavens. I feel like we're allowing them to set themselves up for failure.
And especially as closer to, Terry, you correct me, $30,000 a student?
Yeah, if not more.
They're not getting those services. And, you know, I'm all about free market economy, go where you're gonna do well, but, you know, make sure those kids are doing well. They come back to us and they're out a year of credits. It puts them further behind the 8 ball. And saying to a kid, look, I know you can't get up the hill with 100 pounds in your backpack, now we gotta put 200 pounds in your backpack.
Right.
And that sets that kid up for failure. And I think that's where those cyber schools have to be held accountable.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
think-
believe this is being allowed to happen. And even Doug gave us a list of grade point averages of our students, and they're not, I mean, there are some that are doing very well, but overall, in my opinion, they're still not doing as well as our students that come and have a teacher teaching them. But they're doing better than the ones that are off in cyberspace. That's what I call it.
Furthermore, I'll tell you what Doug has done in working with the students is saying, look, let's just put the brakes on this. Why don't you try one class cyber?
Right.
See what it's like
You did say that.
before you
I love that.
go and commit.
Yes.
Because if it is an escape, they're not bringing with them to work ethic. There are some kids who can do well and work in that way
Mhm,
and provide a platform for them to advance their learning.
mhm.
But if they're not going to have a good experience at it because of whatever reasons, then it's setting them up for failure.
And school
All right,
districts.
I think you're doing a great job, Doug. You know, I think that every scenario I threw at Doug, like, well, what if I wanted to do this? Well, what if he would say, yep, we could accommodate that. Yep. I mean, you're so flexible with how you treat each student, and it just frustrates me that we have all these
Sally, I
students.
think Doug though made a really good point though initially. If you don't know that they're looking.
Yeah.
And they've gone, it's very difficult to get them back. It's very easy or it's much easier to keep them if you can talk to them before they made the move. But once they've made the move, unless there's something else, and so you can't.
I have a concern that these kids are leaving the district. And I know that there was a family that lived close to me that had 4 kids left the district. They were incapable of teaching these kids the discipline of sitting in front of a computer. There were 4 kids in the family that left, went to cyber school, and I'm sure never, ever got a credit. Okay. And the cyber school, did they ever kick those kids back? Okay, did they, or do they just keep taking the $17,000? Okay, times 4, okay, for this family. And these kids were, I know they weren't sitting in front of the computer doing any work at all. And yet we were sending out premium cash every semester.
Right.
And when if they ever come back to the district, okay, if not, these kids are just lost forever.
Right.
And what discourages me is when Walter was a boy, we had truant officers that made sure you were at school and you had to be there. And there doesn't seem to be anybody that can put these kids in front of a teacher, in front of knowledge, or take their parents to jail. I mean, do whatever. That we've lost all control of that. So these 4 kids may never ever come back to public school. Okay? Never learn to read. Okay, never ever get an education. But their parents will get the computer. We'll spend $17,500 per kid forever until they graduate, until they turn 18, and no knowledge will ever be related to these kids.
And they're not getting $17,000 worth of service.
Oh, heavens, no, definitely not.
You could make an argument, say if they were doing all these things and the student was succeeding, okay, that happened to work for that student. But, I would say this, that our system isn't perfect, but what the difference is, we haven't stopped trying.
I agree.
Well,
And you know what
we are in control, okay? If the kid doesn't work in our district, we help him, we work with him, we try to get him to be successful. Okay, these kids they don't have a chance. They don't have the discipline to sit in front of, there's a first grader in this family, and there's 4 computers in this family going at the same time. It never happened. Okay, it never happened. And those kids are going to go through the system without anybody forcing them to learn to read.
Well, one other thing we have to think about is could be contagious, because a high school kid hears that their friend is at home. Oh, I don't have to get up in the morning. I can sleep in, and hey, I just copy and paste this stuff. I mean, that sounds mighty fine to some high school kids, but it's just,
But the parents, I'm talking about elementary school kids.
Oh.
One of the reasons that Doug can take 7 to 8 kids is because there's only 6 in every class.
Right.
Okay, it's not like there's 50 12th graders. These kids are spread out over all 12. But how a first grader can sit in front of a computer and learn, I'm completely baffled by.
Well, there was a math teacher sitting in there too the day that we were touring, helping the students, sitting right at one of the computers, helping the students. So there's a real teacher
In our
helping
district,
them.
in our district.
Yes.
In our
Yes.
district. And one of the things I love about our district is that these kids can come in and they can play in the band, and they can play in the football team.
Exactly.
They can try out for the play.
Still be part
Well,
of
I
something.
don't know what steps we'll take next, but when I have my PSBA report, I have a few things to say about it, and I'm not gonna get into that now, but some suggestions, okay? It's late.
Good. Yeah, it is.
Good, we started at 5.
No, and it's now almost 8.
Tom came in at 5:30. He didn't get the.
You didn't get the memo.
Hey, just text me, I'll let you know.
I missed that minute.
We talked about you, that's all, before you got here.
For the first half
You
hour.
didn't even get through the first
Hey, we didn't even get-
by the time and a half.
Just because you have your picture in the front page of the paper, you still have to come on time.
Above the fold, and my hair looked good. I
Was there anything else for the good?
Yeah, I would like to congratulate Randy on the new system.
Yeah.
I've been watching it here on the, on my computer.
It's going well.
And the camera actually turns to people who are talking some of the time, at least one
I
around
noticed
the
it.
time.
Most of the time.
Yeah, and sometimes only gets half a Tara's face, but it does.
That's probably a good.
But you are blown up, and the sounds.
It looked better.
Yeah.
The sound on
It definitely looked a lot
visually
better.
significantly better.
Have you been watching too?
I saw it up.
Oh, yeah, it
I didn't
is,
watch it on
it's,
here.
it's doing a nice job.
It is, so
I
much better.
think Wade had something.
I'll make
Wait.
it very fast. That last item, talking about IDEO, and I'd also like to extend a thank you to the board members who were able to come and see the other parts of senior high school. It meant a lot to our teachers, so thank you very much for doing this.
I know, and it made me sort of feel guilty because it makes me feel like we should be taking tours of other buildings, because I had so many teachers telling us that showed that we really cared, which we do really care.
Well,
And I learned a lot.
And we have Horace Mann coming up.
It was impressive.
Yes.
It was impressive what has happened in that building over the last decade. I was a little stunned at all the stuff that we've accomplished. It's just and how the teachers are using it. It was really great to see. So, thank you for the.
Make you
tour.
proud.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Wade.
Okay, can we adjourn the meeting?
I think adjourn the meeting.
Meeting
Thank you.
adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. You did a great job.